So, dude, first of all, I have to thank you profusely because I know that you are a really, really busy person, and more so than probably most of my guests. So, I really appreciate you doing this.
I'm happy to be here, and I'm honored, and thank you for. I'm flattered for being on here. So yeah, thanks for taking the time to talk to me about what I love to do. So yeah, yeah, I love
Cool.
making time for these things, and it means a lot. So I appreciate it.
So, dude, listen, I just want to start off, maybe just talking about your podcast that you've done before. I know that you are not doing it anymore, or
Yeah,
as far as I know.
yeah, hiatus.
Um,
Yeah.
I'd heard that it had become a bit problematic and whatnot, and I just wanted to know if you would like to share some of the background of that.
Oh, the problematic part.
Well, I mean, a bit of everything. It seemed like super successful, and I'd heard that you just got a bit like just fed up with it,
Yeah.
and I understand it. I mean, I'm pretty new to all of this. This has been
Mm.
going for 2 years, but compared to the length of time that you've been doing it, it's just a drop in the ocean. And
I don't know about that.
I, yeah, I mean, I've definitely had moments where I'm kind of questioning my life choices. So I just was kind of interested to see what's happening on your end.
Yeah, no, the Collective podcast, I was doing it for about 5 years. I think I got 230 episodes, I believe. Lots of content basically. It originally started because I was a big fan of listening to Joe Rogan's podcast and many other podcasts, and I realized instantly that there wasn't a podcast like that for the creative space in this little community that we live in. And so I thought it'd be really good and also good resource for younger artists and just artists in general. It also came from being isolated as a freelancer. I was working at studios prior, and then I had this I took for granted being so social with everybody. And as a freelancer, you're completely isolated. You're just a little island, and you're not able to socialize. So and also people are willing to talk with you when it's on a podcast. So it was like it did a lot of things all at once, and I was able to share that conversation. But then it came down to it, like what was happening for me is um, there like the podcast became something that wasn't mine anymore, and it became the community's, which is totally fine. But then I started doing things that were unnatural in my behavior when it came to the podcast, which is like just doing things out of like what I think other people like, and that's completely against the way I operate in general. I try not to be selfish, but there's I'm just being honest with myself. Like I like to do the things that I want to do, and the only way to get the best out of me is for me to do my pure intention kind of things, you know? So, um, but yeah, the long story short is basically like, I was tired of talking about doing things. I wanted to start doing things. And I realized that if I wanted to fulfill these big goals, which I had, which is like directing films and building big projects and doing these things, then I need to stop talking about them and I need to actually do them. So it was almost like there was like an era of my life where it was like consummate student, and then once I achieved a certain level beyond the student mindset, I was like, okay, it's time to enter into like a mastery stage. And mastery for me was about applying, and applying and failing and applying and failing, and basically cycling that until like you'd get more successes than failures, and then that came of it. I just realized really quickly that I just don't have that much time in the day, and as you know too, making a podcast, like I never made there's no profit based in it. I didn't do it for profit, but there also have to still pay bills, and so effort has to go into some sort of currency exchange and capital to fund lifestyle and whatever. So but I love making the podcast, and I've thought many times to bring it back, but every time I do, I just realize like how busy I am and how little time I have. But I'm really blessed. Like I got to give a shout out to Andrew Harlick, who was the producer of the show, and he did a lot of the maintenance and taking care of things and getting things up there and corresponding with guests and so on and so forth. So, but even with his help, it gets taxing. So long answer. That's basically it in a nutshell. Yeah,
So,
complicated.
so then on the subject of like these different phases that you talked about, like student mastery and all that sort of thing. is that something that you apply to everything that you do?
Yeah, I didn't realize it until like because I just kind of get in a bubble and I don't realize what I'm doing sometimes until I get like a solid critique from a friend. Not a critique in a bad way, just like, oh yeah, I can make it make sense. I was just riding bikes, the bike behind me. I get really into things and then I obsess about them until like I get to a place. Even it could be as simple as like riding a bike, and I went riding with a friend of mine and he was like, "Man, you are so intense in everything you do." And I was like, "That's the only way that I like to live life is like all in or not at all, and I want to be the best that I can, not for anybody else but for myself, my own fulfillment, to be really good." And there's certain things you have to be very careful for that kind of personality type. You have to be very cautious of where you put your energy, because if you don't, then you'll end up in some sort of weird hole, you know, because it's all there. Everything takes energy and time, and there's only so much of it that you need to be cautious of where you put it. So, but yeah, I would say basically everything is pretty intense. Yeah, yeah,
Have
passion.
you have you always been like that, Ash? Is that something like that drive? Is that always been like that from a young age, or would you put that down to like certain events that have made you that way, or is it just something
Hmm.
that's instinctive?
Great question. I would say, um, yeah, my childhood. I had a very interesting childhood, but um, I think my incessantness towards mastery didn't really come about until like I became a dad. I got married to my wife. Like I think there was like a big mental switch that happened there. Like there was this big pivot. It's like I feel like up until then I was a boy, and then right then I had to make the switch to a man, and I had to acknowledge the that part of being a strong male figure and fulfilling those shoes, and being just a good person and a solid person. And I think that kind of unfolded, and then I started really getting into like self-help books and analyzing and self reflecting and trying to find weaknesses and dissolve them within me and try to find ways of moving past commonalities in the creative flow, like procrastination and so on and so forth. um, uh, all that kind of stuff. I basically uh, like pretty much abolished almost, or like demolished everything. I like that in my daily structure. It's like a machine basically. But yeah, I can't think. There's not a trigger necessarily, but I think it was that was like around the time where, at that time too. There's a For those that listen to the podcast, the collective podcast, they know this story, but I just summarize it really quickly. Is I got a I put together a portfolio. I got hired by this really amazing studio called Prologue. It was run by Kyle Cooper, and Danny Yant was there and everything. And it was just like this amazing moment of my life where I dedicated a whole year of my life to my career. And it was just like I call it the year of pure potential. And it was just I learned a lot about myself and how far I could go. And I'm always pulling from that pool and going beyond it. So that was probably around that time was when I really started to take my life really seriously.
How long ago was that?
Oh, Prologue was like that was like 12, 13 years ago. Yeah, maybe 14 now. Yeah, 13, 14. It's right around when I was with my wife at the beginning. Yeah, we just got married, and then I went off to this job, and I was gone for basically a year. But you have to sacrifice. You have to put that work in. You have to understand who you are, and those that love you and support you will understand. And there's patience, but it's a long lot of sacrifices. Yeah.
Dude, so just to let you know, myself, you and I are both born in '83, so we're the same age.
Okay. Yeah.
And I
Good
think
age.
it is, and it's one of those weird years that I never fucking meet anybody that was born in '83. It's really weird, and I sometimes always
Carlos.
feel, I who?
Carlos. Color
Yeah.
sponges. Yeah.
Oh,
We're
is
two
he?
days apart in birth. Yeah.
No, really?
It's crazy. Yeah, it's pretty funny. Yeah.
That's fucking
You've had him
insane.
on
I
the
mean,
podcast too. Yeah.
I have, yes, I
I love
have.
him.
Yeah, he's a great, great dude.
Amazing.
Um,
Yeah.
such a nice guy, and I
An
just
incredible talent. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I can't. I mean, you've had one hell of a career, and I think that you've also put I mean, you've been really focused for a long period of time. I mean, I've been focused, but not for 14 years, that's for sure. It's kind of been a bit of a delayed reaction. And the thing is, like,
Mm,
I mean, I've got two kids as well,
mm.
and I'm still married,
Good.
and
That's already
I'm
enough.
well, dude, it's insane, as you know, and I just
Yeah.
assumed that somebody that has achieved the stuff that you've done, that is as busy as what you are, I couldn't imagine that you'd have children. But I mean, you've just highlighted that. But I heard in a keynote recently that you mentioned you've got a daughter. So,
Yeah.
um,
She's
and
almost
also,
18.
what?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I met my wife when my daughter was 3, so I'm her stepfather, but I'm dad basically. So
Okay,
yeah,
wow. Dude,
yeah,
that's yeah, okay. So I mean that's yeah, that's a wow. Okay, so you are like a master. I mean, I was also surprised to hear you mention work-life balance. So I like could you just like where does that come in with student the mastery and dedication and putting in the time and like where
Hmm.
does that come in later on? How did
I don't think so. I don't think I've kind of not given up on the idea, but I've definitely reserved. I've kind of pulled back on the insistence that there needs to be a balance. A lot of it just comes down to communicating to the family and them understanding and compartmentalizing things, and then also making time. And when the time is there for family time and so on and so forth, and it's isolated time. There's no phones. There's no distractions, and it's just like we're really present and in the moment there. Another thing that really helps is my wife is my producer. We're partners,
oh,
so she understands the ins and outs in great detail. So if I'm stressed, she knows exactly why. Or if I'm doing really well, she knows exactly why. So that helps a lot. And also, like I said, my daughter is 17 and a half, so she's on her way to adulthood. So that helps a lot too. When she was younger, it was much more complicated, much more difficult because you don't want to just abandon somebody at that age. You have to be very cautious of like cultivating good behaviors and so on and so forth, because they're needing that stimulus to be programmed correctly so that they can become a successful good human being. But yeah, it's there's I don't really think there's a work life balance, honestly. I think you do what you do in your own rhythm. Like right now I'm testing all kinds of weird stuff. Like for the past 2 weeks, um I was like testing like 4 hour windows and like working and then sleeping 4 hours in weird intermittent like moments of the day, and that was testing that, and that was weird. And now I'm back to like getting up at like 6:30 in the morning and riding really hard, and then working through the day and going to sleep at like 12. So yeah, I don't know.
is
It just
that
depends.
that's your is that your daily rhythm at the moment? You're getting up early and first thing in the morning you're going for a ride, empty stomach,
Yeah.
outside.
Yes, yeah, which is kind of rare, honestly, because usually, for the most part, I was going to sleep at 6 or 7 in the morning. I was just working through the night. A lot of it just depends on where's the flow of the work. If the work is like really dominant and really demanding, then I just give my everything to the work, and then it basically eats my life and all my sleep and my time. But if the work is in rhythm and I'm in tandem and I'm able to control it and be mature about it, then I can kind of isolate it. And um, typically I work a 12 to 14 hour day. It's usually my day. And I love what I do, even when it's really challenging. So it's not that big of a problem, thankfully. The older I get, the more further in my career and more mature the career develops in my personal like impact on the world. And I'm able to like spend a lot more time on my personal work, which is what matters most to me. I don't mind client work, but I'm trying to get away from that effort more and more because I feel like I've checked a lot of those boxes. Yeah, it's it's kind of like I'm just giving you an update. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, cool. I
yeah,
mean, like I don't know. I'm sure a lot of the listeners will know who you are, but as you know, this is a primarily a car design podcast. But I mean, there's
yeah,
such an overlap with what we do and what you guys do, and we get I mean, we've had Carlos. That was kind of the first step out into the concept art world. I don't
great.
know if you know Scott Robertson, but he's been on
Yeah,
the
of course,
on
Scott's
the
a
show as
legend.
well,
Hmm.
and
Yeah,
it's super. it's really really interesting to get another perspective and another view on a similar. There's a lot of things that there's a lot of parallels between what we do. You guys also work in 3D. You guys also sketch. You also render, and yet, but I guess the 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 day to day is maybe a little bit different. And I think there's a lot more independence in what you do. So it's just interesting to see, yeah, the similarities and the differences between the two worlds.
Yeah, I don't know your world all that much. I just know mine, and I'm pretty isolated in my approach. But yeah, I can't imagine how that process works. I got a little sample of it in certain parts of my life, but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we're just literally communicating with our thoughts via visuals for the most part. So, and I think it's good for you for adding variety to your podcast too, because it also hopefully gives your audience and yourself like something else to consider and chew on. There's a saying inside of the Ghost in the Shell. There's a quote from it. She says, if you over specialize, you breed in weakness. And I really do agree with that. If you just focus on one thing too much, I think it could potentially cause you to have a fault in the way that you approach problem solving. Or I think variety is what the mind needs, and the variety is what the creative mind needs. And it's good to kind of throw a lot of variety at things, because that's how you really can add to the equation of things. Variety can tend to be like where the good taste comes from, and good evaluation of work and good critique of work comes from that variety. But yeah, yeah, it's
Ash,
good.
how did you start out in this? Because it seems like, I mean, based on the fact that we're both the same age,
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like you were starting in your late teens already. Is that correct?
No, no, I had a very late
No, no.
start. No,
Okay.
unfortunately. Well, I didn't. I came from just was raised by a single mom, and she did her best to. We got by and we figured it out. But yeah, I put myself through college, and um, I did all that, and I moved out pretty young age, and uh, a lot of it. I mean, yeah, I didn't start my career, I think, until I was like, yeah, like 26. I think that was the year of prologue. So I'm 39 now, almost 40. So yeah, it's crazy how fast the
That's
time's going
scary
by. But
shit, dude.
yeah,
I'm terrified. Like
I
it's
love
like,
it though. Yeah, I'm
yeah.
bracing it. It just kind of let it be, because it's you have a choice in life. You can put energy into something you can't solve, or you just do it. And I try not to really think of it. I just try to think of like how to fulfill every day and every healthy day you have with your body and your mind and your loved ones, and like all you can do is just conquer it as best you can and move through it. But yeah, I would say, yeah, I didn't really start my career until like 26, 27 is when it started to really. That's when I was like, okay, it's time to take this seriously. But to be honest, like, growing up in, I don't know the word for it, but like growing up in humble beginnings, like you can always afford like your imagination, and you can draw. And my mom was an incredible artist, or still is, I'm sure. And then my brother, everybody I knew in my immediate family were just really great draftspeople or craftspeople or creatives. And so it kind of was second nature that like I was going to be doing this kind of thing that I'm doing now, which is creating things. But I guess I just went all the way in. And a lot of it comes down to like my career path. I think a lot of it comes down to like the passion and the passion of doing things. But a lot of it can also be equated to like luck and the timing of things, and just being at the right place at the right time, and showing up. Showing up is always a thing. Showing up and being eager to work, and being the first person to raise your hand to say, I want to do this, and having that pursuit, I think has helped a lot too. So it kind of made things exponential. All of when I look back at, I don't do this a lot, but when I look back at the rhythm of success that's occurred, if we want to call it success, almost always it just came down to me just putting myself forwards, and asking if I could help, or if anything's needed, or like maybe we'll talk about this because we're talking about car design and stuff, but the Batmobile project and how that came about. But that originally was, I was working on Ghost in the Shell with Rupert, there's a character inside of Ghost in the Shell called Bateau, and he has this really awesome car. And I asked Rupert if anybody had designed it yet, because I would love to. I keep in mind I was designing something completely different for the film, and he was like, "Yeah, give it a go." And then like Mache and I started working together, and Mache Cuchara, who's I'm talking about, he's an incredible artist and a great friend of mine, and that kind of unfolded because I just asked if I could help, and then I just did it, and I put everything I could into it. And even like looking back, they're so horrible in regards to execution, but the idea is there, and he could see it. And then I'm also a big car person. I love cars, and I'm somewhat knowledgeable of them because I've owned a lot of them and I've worked on a lot of them. So that's like another thing that kind of led me into kind of being attached to that, and so on and so forth. But again, I think a lot of it, if you're for listeners out there that are maybe starting out or in the midway or at the end or wherever you are in the course, I think what has helped me that I hope could help you potentially is just being proactive and being independent thinking, and realize that you're an individual and celebrate your individuality and propel that forwards. And there's a lot of value in that, avoiding trends and just being yourself, and capitalizing on that.
Is there anything that comes to mind where you've done something like that for yourself, where it's not directly okay? In this instance, it wasn't required by you for this job, but you still, I mean, you took the initiative to do it on your own. But and maybe something came out of it, maybe it didn't. But is there anything that comes to mind where you've done that, um, like completely for yourself, whether it be a I don't know, a car or a film or I don't know, a website. Is there anything that you've like really put a lot of time and effort into something where along the way you've gone like shit, like shouldn't I really be putting more time into a freelance gig? Is there anything that pops to mind?
Um, yeah, I'm sure I had those. Sometimes I have a secondary thought of fear or regret, or um, there's just only so much energy in the day, and
Yeah,
I feel like that's a waste of energy. Second question, like questioning yourself or doubting yourself. But the one thing I always prided myself on for over the years, and it's actually weird how it's all kind of paying off because there's this whole thing, the NFT space and all that kind of stuff. We can talk about that a little bit. But for years, I would do the client work, and I would try to do the best thing I could, and that worked out nicely. And I went from one special client project to the next. And but on top of that, on the sides, nights and weekends, I would continually explore new tools and new ways of communicating, and by making passion projects. And each one of those, I mean, they just take a ton of time. I remember like
right. Yeah.
I worked with my friend Mike on this tribute to Akira. So many people were like, "Why are you doing this? And what's the point of it?" And we spent a year on that thing, and it was like, I don't know, a minute, but it was so cool. We were so happy about it and so proud of it because our efforts like eventually became something special. But yeah, I think like the way that I drive my life through is with passion. So for me, the fuel of life in my creation is always passion. That's how Color Sponge, Carlos and I, we've connected through passion, and we are pushing each other through passion. The passion, it always works this way, in my opinion. The way that I see it is that if you chase the client work, you're going to check all those boxes, and then that gets fulfilled. That's what I call like putting happiness in the hands of others. That's okay. You can do that, but you eventually get tired of that because you're gonna slowly realize, like I potentially I did, is like there's a ceiling to that. So when you fulfill it for yourself and you ask your own questions and you do your own thing, you build a passion, and then you put that work out there. Everybody that is in sync with you will connect with you, and that power of that creation is going to eventually turn into something else. And I can't tell you how many times, like 5 years, 10 years past a project being released, somebody comes up to me and says, or emails us and says, really love this project. We loved it. We have this thing X, Y, and Z, blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, okay, so you see the passion, you want to do this, and then we market it and blah, blah, blah. It all kind of unfolds and becomes this thing. But if I didn't put the passion in all those years before, then I would not have the voice. I would not put the thing in, so on and so forth. And nobody told me this, obviously. I guess maybe I learned it from like seeing other artists that I love making true work for themselves. But that was always the reason why I made anything, anyways. Because I just like I say that art is a when I say that when you're the drug and the drug dealer, then it's really complicated. And I'm addicted to making art. I love making art. I love making things, and I love collaborating, and I love expressing these different forms of mediums and translating things. I just love it all, and I love doing it, and I'm never gonna stop doing it for as long as I can. I feel like every day I'm just starting to turn a new page, and there's like a new level that I'm trying to approach every day. I'm like, wow, okay, this is getting crazier and crazier. Like right now, just locked the visual effects on the latest film I worked on, and I wrote it, and I have my friend Tyler as the actor in it, and it's a 15-minute film, and it's super crazy and weird and very unique, and it's totally my kind of thing. And we just finished the vis effects on it, which has been a complete slog, and I love all my buddies who've helped me out with it. Now we're grading it this weekend, and I've just learned so much about the process, and we're doing all the sound design and stuff, and that's going to come out pretty soon, which I'm really excited about too. But sorry, my answers are so vast and long, so I apologize. I'm just jumping all over the
No,
place. So
they no, no, they're great, dude. But no, because I think in general, with regard to, at least in the automotive space, you kind of, you either a designer, or you are a modeler, or you are a viz artist, or whatever the case
sure,
is. And I can speak, I mean, to an extent on all those things, but I mean, my primary role within design has been modeling.
mm.
And we all use a program called Alias, which you've probably heard
Yeah,
of.
yeah,
And it takes forever to kind of get good at it.
yeah.
The
Big learning
problem is
curve.
that by the time you've kind of mastered it, there's a it's taken so much energy to get to a stage where you really understand it, that you've almost got like very little RAM
Mm.
to dedicate to anything
Yeah,
else, and then you finally get a decent paying contract, and then like most nine out of 10 modelers are just like, I've got a great freelance gig, or whatever the case is,
sure,
and I'm gonna come, like, I want evenings free, and I want weekends free, and that's all great, as you say. Like, if it works for you, that's
totally.
awesome. But I mean, for me, it wasn't enough, and also
Mm.
it becomes dangerous as well, because you're reliant on one fucking source,
Yes.
basically.
Yeah.
And and that was kind of where I I mean, that was kind of the genesis of this,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
we've
Diversify.
also
Mm.
yeah, and it's like, and it's a difficult sell at times to my wife, for example, because it's like, this is taking up a lot of
Hmm.
time. There isn't any direct uh,
Value.
monetization on the horizon, all those sort of
Yes.
things. But it's like, instinctively it feels
Then
right.
do it.
I'm personally getting a hell of a lot out of it.
Great.
I've got, you know, and things are starting to come out of it, indirectly. You're meeting
Hmm.
people, projects that you
Yes.
would never have heard about otherwise. All the things that you talked about at the beginning.
Hmm.
There's all these
Yep.
different things are being solved by this one thing. Um, and
Yep.
hence why I asked, because it might have seemed like a bit of a weird question, but the question on working on something that you're not sure if anything can come out of it, but it is ultimately a passion project.
Yeah. Well, I think that it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, is like, comment on Alias and why I haven't used it, because like you have to be very cautious of what you're doing and what you're putting your time and energy in, and you need to project out. You need to go like, okay, this takes X amount of hours. Let's say, like, if you really want to do it, you talk to like an industry professional and you go, how long does it take to blah blah blah, and then you go, oh well, it's a 4 year 5 year commitment. At the end of it, you're XYZ, blah blah blah. Do you want to be there? Go out 5 years and project out, and then ask yourself, do you want to be there? And then work backwards. Perhaps what you're doing now and what you're seeing is And I had the same thing with the collective podcast. Is you get a lot of interesting indirect things that you never considered. And probably to me, the most fulfilling is that I get a lot of correspondence emails from people on their path and their journey, and they're telling me that that the podcast and what the people that I've brought on or what I've said has had any kind of positive response or positive impact on them. And I mean, what else can you ask for beyond that? Because you really cannot put a quantified value on that. The positive impact you can have on somebody's life and multiple people's lives is like, if you're going to do anything in life in this world, then why not that be the pursuit, you know? The only reason I stopped doing, like I said, is that I'm just selfish. I just want to do, I'd rather work more than talk,
Yeah.
you know? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And I don't mind being a guest.
Yeah.
That's fine. I could do a guest,
Yeah.
you know, like once every couple of months, like, you know, do an hour thing and meet new friends. And I love that. So it's much more manageable, obviously. But yeah. But again, like you're saying, and you'll see it too, and it'll be a residual impact as you go through this and bring more people onto your show and talk with them. Is it's going to be much more fulfilling, like soul fulfilling
Yeah.
than anything,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to give back to people because we're all on the same quest for the most part. We're all pursuing truth. We're all pursuing passion. We're all pursuing perfection. These are all these things that we're on the pursuit of. If we're taking our life seriously, that's literally the quest that we're after, you know? And it's a beautiful thing to do. And it's a beautiful thing to share that with others too.
Ash, on another thing, I mean, I wasn't surprised because I'd seen pictures of you before, but like with the amount of stuff that you do and the amount of hours that you put into your work, how is it that
Mm.
um you're not like a fat slob like me? Like where
Hey, be nice to
I mean,
yourself.
no,
Genetics.
it's no, but
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it's accelerated in the last, say, 5 years because of
Well, how old are your kids?
uh,
5 years old?
7, 4 and 7.
There's your answer.
I mean, but I
Yeah,
think,
you got.
the thing, but it's true. It is very true. But at the same
Yeah.
time, there's absolutely nothing stopping me from doing what you're doing with regard to getting up out of
Mm.
the house at 6:30 every morning and going outside for an hour.
Mm. Well, it's a pain in the butt,
I know.
you know. But I just turned it into a
Yes.
competition. So I trained jujitsu pretty heavily for like 6 to 7 years or so, and that's the gnarliest
Really.
stuff I've ever encountered. I mean, but I also trained with some of the best in the world. So my coach, if you want to call him my coach or my sensei or whatever the terminology is his name's Giovanni, and Gio is he goes by Freakazoid is his like dancing name. We used to break dance together. That's how I know him. I break dance in college,
Jesus.
and him and his brother Richie Martinez. They're like they're proteges from Eddie Bravo. Eddie
I know Eddie
Bravo's
Bravo.
good friends with Joe Rogan and so on and so forth. Yeah, he kind of got
He's a
into it
flat
from
earther,
being
isn't
like this
he? Eddie
conspiracy guy.
Bravo.
Yeah,
Fucking hell.
yeah, but he's a sweetheart, and he does mean well. But yeah, it's
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
even want to
yeah,
get into
yeah.
that. So just talk about the
Okay.
jujitsu. But yeah, no, jujitsu is thing. I'm just very competitive, and I have a very competitive nature within myself. I apply all these things to art. I apply them to the process of art. And I used to ride mountain bikes and stuff too, but I tore my meniscus pretty bad, and so I built this bike behind me, and it's a fixed gear like track bike. Now I'm slowly turning it into like a time trial bike because like nobody wants to ride with me because I'm super competitive, and so I just race with myself, and so I have my biometrics and my clocks and everything, and I just turn it into like an internal battle basically. I'm like, I'm really excited because today I hit like a pretty gnarly goal, and I'm just like slowly chipping at like seconds every day. But that's really the thing that gets me doing it is just try to eat healthy, not always, but then yeah, and a healthy mind, healthy body. But again, I don't always do that, and I have a lot to attribute to genetics because my wife's always like, I don't understand how you could eat all this stuff and then it doesn't stick to you, So a lot of it's probably just genetics and stuff. So and just wanting to do something physical that I enjoy. And right now, in this part of my life at age 39, my current thing is I'm stupid and I like to go really fast on my bike. And I almost hit 40 miles an hour
Jesus
on this thing the other
Christ.
day, and I was like, this is great. but it's a fixed gear, so I don't know if you understand
Yeah,
how
yeah,
that
yeah.
works. So like
Yeah,
your
you can get
pedals, I
shot
have
up
clip
in the
in, so
air.
it's
Yeah,
constantly going.
yeah.
Yeah.
If you try and stop.
Hopefully not get shot up in the air. Yeah, but because I grew up with BMX and stuff. I like that aggressive, weird approach to just doing things. I like that weird edginess to things, and I just enjoy that part of life. And I welcome it. I welcome a challenge, and I welcome the pain of a challenge, and I love that incremental growth and that habitual routine. So, but yeah, it kind of comes. It all spirals out from that kind of thing, you know. So but genetics, I think, are the biggest thing that I can be thankful for, I
Fair
guess.
enough, but I mean,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
seems like as well you are making some healthy lifestyle choices. I mean, just starting your day off with a cycle
Try
for a
to.
start. I mean, that's already a really
Mm.
productive thing in task completion and all that sort of stuff. And also, it might make you probably makes you think twice before you like, have a stack of pancakes with maple syrup for breakfast.
Yeah, yeah, no pancakes. Yeah, yeah, that's true. Well, I guess again, I think it comes down to the programming, right? So for me, it's like I want to be good. I want to beat myself from yesterday, or keep in a consistent routine of growth. So in order to do that, I don't want to counter my growth by sabotaging myself with, say, a bad diet or whatever. Yeah, because I literally get up, I hydrate as much as I can without getting too full, and then I get on the bike and I just hammer it. I go like flat out for probably do like 35 to 40 minutes, and I'll try to ride 15 to 18 miles and then
Jesus.
come back, and then yeah, then I get the work going. So
Jesus, what a
sometimes I
savage.
do it during the day or at the average, but yeah, it just depends on how the body's feeling and stuff. But every day is different. And the freelance lifestyle is like one day you could be doing something and the next day another thing happens, and it's very adventurous, but it also takes a lot of time and energy to maintain, and the inconsistency of things, it gets kind of crazy. But
So, Ash, are
yeah.
you from San Diego?
Yeah, well, I'm from a lot of places, but I grew up all over the place. Like grew up in Hawaii, but I've been in San Diego since like 2000. So like 20 years I've been down here. Yeah.
But
It's a
and
nice place.
did you study in San Diego?
Yeah, I went to a junior college down here called Palomar College, and then I went to another, I guess you'd call it a junior college, but yeah, they're like local state schools. Nothing really crazy. I always wanted to go to art center, but again, I didn't have the finances for that kind of thing. I was on my own at that point. So, um, but yeah, yeah, the art center.
What what
Yeah.
did you study? I mean, was there a clear intention to do
Hmm.
VFX or concept art?
Oh no, no,
So
there
there
was
was no
no
grand plan.
at this. No, it was. It's funny. The other day I was looking at like my DVDs on my wall. You can't see it, but there's like Gnomon
Yeah, yeah.
DVDs. Remember Gnomon? Yeah, so I have all those. I'm like, damn, that's so classic. I used to like put them in the computer and like watch them and absorb them. And yeah, I'm pretty much primarily self-taught. And to this day too, I'm like just grinding through just. I mean, it's incredible the resources we have now are just we're one step closer just basically plugging data into our heads, which I cannot wait for because I hate the language of understanding somebody else's language of programming. I hate it so much. So I can't wait
So
for that because then at
you
the end of the
ready to
day, it's just going
go
to be ideas.
as soon as Musk says
I'm ready.
Neuralinks like it's cooking, you're gonna go.
Let's do this, baby. Yeah, no,
Jesus.
I won't be an early adopter of that, but let's go a couple rounds. I'll do like V3 or something. I'll get in there, and yeah, I'd love that because I mean, ultimately, there's all these things inside of me that I would love to convey, and I'd love to see, and I'd love to evolve. But yeah, the process of getting them out is so laborious, unnecessarily laborious. It's just so taxing. uh, yeah, as we all know, I'm sure everybody listening is like, yeah, we know. Yeah, the pain of learning programs, and not only learning a program, but mastering its ability to find its weaknesses and strengths and then utilizing them and exploiting them so that you can like make the fastest, most dominant, crazy, high quality work possible.
But dude, that's the thing.
Yeah.
That's the thing, right? Like when you get to that level, I think, this is the I don't know what the word is, but you you put in all this effort into a certain
Mm.
program, and you do get to mastery level, you fully understand all the strengths and weaknesses. And the fucking great
Yeah.
thing about getting to that level is that you can then kind of just execute what's in your head. What I don't understand
Yeah.
is how somebody like yourself is able to get to that level in all these different programs because you've
Oh,
literally got like,
there's no mastery.
okay, I mean,
Yeah, there's no mastery involved.
okay,
It's spreading it all over the place.
okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah, I mean, I would say the one program I'm probably used the most would probably be Photoshop and Cinema 4D. But Cinema keeps changing, and then you use all the plugins and stuff. But yeah, it's common for me to use like 20 different programs in a day. It's just like all over the place, like all kinds of different things. But you just use the thing that you like, that you need, and then you just get in there. For me, I get in there and I jump out. Like I had to use ZBrush the other day. Carlos and I are building our next cars right now, and we Carlos is we're always inspiring one another. He's always pushing me, and I'm always trying to push him. Well, at least I'm trying to. And it's very humbling because he is at a very high level, and I love when he like pushes me. And so the other day he was doing all these like TIG weld marks on like a radiator or something that was going in his build, and I was like, ah, fuck, you know. So I started building out the things, and then I started kicking the geometry back to ZBrush, and then I figured out how to like lay down weld lines on the geometry, then decimating them and kicking them back to Cinema, and then building a shader that like corresponds to it, that feel like real life light um, materials, and solved it. But it was just like, damn it. But yeah, that's a typical kind of thing where it's like problem solving, trying to cheat and fake everything you can possible. There's this whole new thing that I've been really doing a huge deep dive into, which is like Mid-Journey and Disco Diffusion, all this AI driven art, which is really fascinating, which I'm loving, and trying to utilize that in my workflow as well, which has been crazy, crazy. I don't know if have you gotten into the AI art stuff
I
yet?
played around with it a little bit. I mean, Scott was a big fan of it, and he was trying to get me to try various things. I mean,
Yeah,
I've played around a little bit with it, but not extensively, no.
it's really. I'd say to you and everybody that's listening, I would say definitely look into it, because it is, as I see it, it's not the end all be all, but it is going to be a very important part of the process. Because we're at the end of the day, we're pretty simple creatures. Let's talk about car design, for example. Like cars, for the most part, they're just beautiful forms that are reimagined versions of a human. You know, if you think about it, it's got two eyes, two lights, got wheels, we got legs. You know, like but cars typically have four wheels. The good ones do. And once you kind of break down the formula of what makes something aesthetically beautiful, you start to understand that there's a rhythm to these things. And there's all these like theologists or theologians, or what do you call it? The people that are like they have theories of things, but
Yes,
there's
theologist, maybe.
Plato's
I don't know.
80-20 and all these things, and the Fibonacci spiral and all these ratios and stuff. But
Yes,
anyways, using the AI is just grabbing everything for the most part, and it's creating a new pool of information, but it's kind of remixing things, and it's
yeah,
getting you to see things that you didn't realize. But you also, what I realized really quickly is like, oh, we're such simple creatures. Like it's just letting me know how simple I am, which is great, but at the same time, it's kind of alarming. But I would say embrace it, because no matter if you don't embrace it, then you're just kicking yourself in the butt. So,
I
but
think
yeah,
so. I think so, and I think a lot of people are naturally. I don't think it's particularly designers are concerned like
mhm.
this is going to replace me. But I like on to your point, like idea generation, for example. There's like, why wouldn't you just have like a bunch of options at your disposal, things that you could never think of, and you
Yes,
still then cherry pick, what
yeah,
works, what doesn't work, what your tastes are,
yes.
how you're going to execute that and develop that further, etc.,
It's a huge value
etc.
there.
Absolutely. And I
Yeah,
think
I
I'm
wouldn't be
very
a fear monger about it. Yeah,
no,
no,
no, no. I think it's
yeah,
like anything new. People always have reservations, and obviously
sure,
this is another level. Like I think it's quite a, it is a big, it's a huge leap. Putting putting a word in, like putting a combination of words into a search
Yep.
engine and it producing images as a result is yeah, it's another level.
Well, let me ask you this though, like on the theory of this, we can go very granular with it, but it's called prompt art basically. You're putting prompts in there, but you're not really doing that much of a different thing using Alias, and I'm not doing a much of a different thing. We're just literally going through somebody else's language. You click on a thing and it does a thing. Well, why don't you type the thing and then the thing comes back? One's faster than the other, but it doesn't necessarily get you there. And
No,
if you're listening and you're afraid of your career being taken by this, then I need you to be serious about asking yourself what value you're giving yourself in the world, you know? And then go like, well, if I'm worried that a machine's going to reduce me down to nothing of value, then maybe I need to be considerate of like what value I have and like really think about that and like how can you contribute more and what can you do to evolve your abilities. The person that harnesses this thing and uses it properly is going to be on the echelon. That's where the level is going to go. And nobody's really proven that yet. It's really crazy for me, at least as a digital artist, because in the beginning as digital artist, my art was attached to programmers and programming and technology. Apple, PC, NVIDIA, AMD, blah, 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 blah. ZBrush, all these things. Now that my art is now attached to cryptocurrency and currency and NFTs, that is a whole volatile, weird, crazy world too. So the art gets accelerated through that. Now we have AI. It's just like I've kind of expressed this a little bit on social media, but like I've not had a chance to articulate why I'm saying what I'm saying, and this is why I'm probably going to bring back the podcast a couple times at least just to talk about this because I feel like we really need to talk about this with and sorry for the tangent, but it's important to talk about. But
don't be
now with the
sorry.
AI thing, it's like whoa, like this is crazy that the technology's gotten to this point. But again, at the end of the day, if you ask yourself, like, why did you start learning Alias? It was to express your ideas, right? To express yourself, to dive into understanding forms and the fluidity of line and contrast and design and all of these things, right? Well, if I could tell you back when you started to do that, I could say, well, why don't you just think about what you want? And you say, what? And I say, why don't you think about the car that you want? What's the car that you want to see? And you start to go, okay, well, I want to see a Ferrari, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's on the surface. Let's go deeper than that. Okay, why don't you think about the animal that inspires you? Oh, okay. And if you think about all the designers that have ever made anything timeless in the automotive space, they've pulled from everything. You know, any good car designer is pulling from nature. They're pulling from all kinds of random stuff because that's what makes it so special. Like, look at the P1, for example. It's so organic. Most McLarens, you know, even the F1, Gordon Murray's one, it's so perfectly beautiful, but very organic. And the nature of it, it's very small and it has these really poetic lines, and the through line's really great. So, but you have to know that he didn't look at cars only for that thing. So again, if you go to prompt art and you start to go like, well, you know, a stingray and this and that, and you start to like think about things on a more like core level and approach it that way, you might be able to get some results that you just never would have considered, you know. And that's when it comes
Mm-hmm.
down to like, what is your taste, how clever are you, and where are you, like, how are you taking this and then remixing it? Because it's called Mid Journey is the one that I use mostly. It's not called End Journey. It's called Mid Journey for a reason. It's the middle of the journey here. You know, take it further. So, but anyways, I'm on a tangent. I got really
No,
crazy. I was
tangents are
making like
great.
700 things a day, and I was like, this is crazy. And then I took a little hiatus and I come back to it. It's so fascinating. Yeah.
I'm gonna go check that out because I haven't played with that. I mean, there's a guy that I've had on the podcast as well, young guy, fucking brainiac, called Jordan Taylor, and he's created this. Well, him and a couple of other people, and it's now a proper little startup. But they've created this tool called Viscom,
Hmm.
and it basically, I mean, it's an AI sketching tool and an AI rendering tool as well. So
Hmm.
I think, like, you know, if you put a line sketch into it, it'll give you a Photoshop rendering and
Wow.
but
What's it
yeah,
called?
it's
Viscom?
pretty Viscom, yeah, with
Your mic got
V
really
I
quiet
Z.
too all of a sudden. Sorry. Let's see.
Oh, okay. Hold on.
Yeah, there
Is
it
it
is.
maybe I? Is it better?
Yeah, it's better. Sorry.
Okay.
Just want to hear your beautiful
Viscom.
voice.
VIZKOM, and it's .io, I think.
Okay.
No, I'm talking shit. Hold on, let me check. Viscom.co. Viscom.co.
Cool. All right, I'll check it out for sure.
So check that out. It's pretty cool, and you can try it out and whatnot. And he's been on the show as well. And Scott was actually advising him as well on a lot of things. So
Awesome.
anyway, I played with that, and then there were a couple that Scott mentioned as well, but I haven't tried Midjourney, but I've written that down, and I'm definitely going to give it a go.
Yeah, Midjourney, I
For
think
sure.
it's still in beta, and I think you need to have invite, and I'd give you one, but I think I'm all out of giving invites. But the Disco Diffusion is a
Okay,
Google one.
okay,
Disco Diffusion is another one, and it's Google, and
okay,
it's more malleable in the process of making things, but it does take more time and more resources, and it takes a little bit of getting used
okay,
to. It's more code based and stuff. So,
okay.
but yeah,
Oh
but
fuck.
these are
Okay.
all just
All
things,
right.
like again, none of this
Yes.
matters unless you have an idea and an intention. That's my opinion. Sure, it matters,
I
but yeah,
know, and
you
yeah,
need to
no,
know what you want to do before you
exactly.
get into it, because like you can waste all of your time. Basically, most of my friends that I've seen use it, they're like blah blah blah, cool, post it, and it's like, but it's a mid journey, guys. It's not the end, and then. But hey, who am I to
Yes.
say and critique? I'm just happy that
What
they're
you
doing
should
it.
do.
So
Yes. Yes. Yes.
yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I love you, friends. Don't get mad
A-
at me.
Ash, Ash, just to go back a little bit because I'm quite interested in like kind of going from zero to one. It's one thing getting your first gig and then getting a better job after that, or
Sure.
getting a better client or whatever. But like going from zero to one in your case was like, what did you do after school?
After school, I worked at a wakeboard company here in San Diego, and also like an action sports magazine called Transworld. And I did like illustrations and art and just random jobs. I did a lot of random jobs, like illustration for people, logo design, everything really. I just kind of took everything that I could. Like I said, the one big first job and project and like thing was working at Prologue, which is because I always wanted to work in films. I love films and I love movies, and I wanted to be a part of them in some capacity. And that was like the entry point, which is like making title sequences and stuff. Um,
So
yeah,
was that a permanent, was that like, did they employ
yeah,
you?
they did. I was for a year. I worked there um, for Prologue, and it was like I was a junior designer, I believe. Like that was, but like Kyle and his wife, Kyle and Kim. Kim hired me, or Kim showed Kyle my work, but they liked it because I could draw, which is cool. And like, um, yeah, they just wanted they needed somebody that potentially could like go beyond just designing, but that could illustrate and draw and storyboard. And because Kyle is a very incredible mind, incredible problem solving designer mind. He comes from like the old school era of like Saul Bass and stuff, and so he needed somebody like that could translate his energy and thoughts into design and things to kind of convince the studio or the client that we were working with at the time, that this was the idea to withhold and to fulfill basically. So but yeah, that was after that. That was I did that for a year. That was really intense. I'd commute like 4 hours basically to go up from San Diego to LA, and there was this whole thing that I did, and I don't get into it. People that know the story. It's a whole
What?
thing, yeah. But I was like really committed. I wanted to do it, and I had yeah. There was no stopping, and but yeah, that's kind of what started it. After that, I went and helped a friend for like a couple months at his studio, and then I went freelance. And then ever since freelance, that was it.
Okay, but hold on a second. Going freelance means what? Like, do you go and find a couple of clients, or are there agencies that you can just call up and say, I'm I'm a VFX artist or whatever the case is, and I'm ready, or how does it
Sure.
work?
Yeah, good point. Okay, so back at that time, the internet and the space was still somewhat nascent. It was still kind of it was still in its infant stage in regards to like how people were conversing in this like motion graphics design space. there was a really dominant water hole, which I call a water hole. It was like a great website called Motionographer. For those of you listening that know this, it's like that was kind of the dominant force, that anything that was of any kind of value or substance from any studio or artist was like being showcased on there. When I didn't have a plan, I just didn't want to have a boss anymore. I was sick and tired of having bosses. So I quit the job, and then I went and I told my wife, I quit. And I put a website together really quickly, and she was kind of panicking. I said, don't worry about it. And then I emailed the website to Motionographer, and I just said, because they did like weekly artist spotlights and stuff, and I just said, hey, here's my work, and just being humble, but again, forth pushing, in a very genuine way, and like not in like some sleazy weird way. But I said, I love your site. It's been a huge muse for me and a resource. I just finished working at Prologue for a year. And at the time, Prologue was kind of like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. They were producing the best chocolate, but nobody understood who was doing it, because everybody was like lifers there. They weren't able to talk about working there. But since I had left, I was able to talk a little bit about it. So they were like, would you be interested in doing like a feature? And then I said, sure. And then they started to understand how I did what I did, which is like the 4-hour commute in my life and this year of pure potential. And that was like, from that moment, that went out there into the scene, and then it became a thing. And then from there, I've never had to look for work.
Fuck.
It was just, the work spoke for itself, thankfully. I was able to fulfill. And then from there, it kind of, it was just a big sacrifice, a lot of work, a lot of effort, but I doubled down on myself. And that's why I call it like the year of pure potential. I think like if you're ever going to invest in anybody or anything, you better invest in yourself, because like, why would you expect anybody else to do it if you're not doing it yourself? So for me, it was like, I'm going to do this. This is my pursuit. I'm going to double down on this, and then I'm going to push it forward and see what happens, And also I tried to make a smart decision. It wasn't like I was like betting money or my life. No matter what was going to happen, I knew I was going to acquire new skills. If anything, I would have to go backwards to like do other things, but I knew I had enough talent and skill at that point that I could slowly get the momentum going. And it's just like this big ball that eventually, gains a mass, and you might look at my career now and go like, oh, sure, it was easy or whatever. But it's like every step was one movement towards the goal, which is just getting better.
Dude,
Yeah.
was there a book or something that you read at that time to kind of give you that? Because but that's a hell of an insight,
A lot of books.
that's a hell of an insight. I
Yeah.
think, like, looking back now, everything is probably a lot clearer, but, it sounds like you probably had a lot of clarity at the time as well.
Not really. I think it was just, well, I just believed in myself, I guess, at that point. I grew up with a lot of supporting friends and family. People, in like art class or whatever, they would say I was talented. So I would believe what they said, and they would say I had ability. So I would be like, well, sure. And then I would look at the world scale and I'd go, well, I'm not as talented as these people, but I can try, and I could work really hard at it and try to be the best version of myself. And then eventually you acquire those skills with discipline and stuff. But there was not one continual book, but these are 3 books that like changed my life that I would love to share with everybody and
Go
yourself
for it.
as well.
Tell us. I'm making notes.
Yeah. So these are, and these are books too I shared with my friend Vitaly. Vitaly Bogdarov is like an incredible artist. He's a machine himself, and I actually became friends with him because he came on my podcast as well. And there's some intense logic in those episodes I did with him. But so one of the books was one I think that he referred to me, which was Eat That Frog.
Eat That Frog.
And weird title. Weird title. And again, these books will only be as good as you apply them. They're just tools, So Eat That Frog was basically, it helped me understand how to prioritize my time in a very effective manner. And that's when everything really started to change for me, because basically what you do is through your day, whether you know it or not, is you're doing things you shouldn't be doing. And you just don't understand whether these are different levels of priority. Some things are really important, like picking your kids up from the school. That's a detrimental thing. If you don't do it, you're in big trouble. So that's a top A level priority. The other one is like doing a call with somebody that you don't care about and you don't get anything out of, and it's pointless. That's something you should
get
not
rid
be
of
doing.
that shit.
Don't do
Stop
it.
that
So,
shit.
yeah, you're wasting your time. You're wasting their time. You're just wasting time. And So that book was huge because it's so simple. And to be also give you some context, I grew up and I had special education, I had learning disabilities, and I had dyslexia and all these kind of things that held me back in regards to like cognitive thinking. So books and reading was always really difficult for me. So audiobooks helped me a lot. I can apply things, but like I'm on this weird spectrum where I can kind of work on things in a different way, and I have to like the input of data has to come in a certain way, or it doesn't really have effect. So, but Eat That Frog was very simple and easy for me to comprehend and apply, which I find to be the most useful tool. And it's like a sword. So Eat That Frog is really crazy good. And then the what's the other one? It's I'm trying to. Oh, okay. There's two. The last two. The one is the War of Art.
The War of Art.
Yes, the War of
Okay.
Art. Yeah, amazing book. Basically, that helped me personify procrastination within myself and eradicate it. If you're procrastinating, which we all do, and it still fucking gets at me, and I'm like, how am I procrastinating at this point? I've been trying to slay this dragon for so many years, but usually what I realize now when I procrastinate is a misalignment's happening, and I should not be doing that thing, and I need to be smarter about finding a puzzle to solve that thing, whatever it is. Like, because if you're procrastinating, that just means you don't want to do it, and there's something that's getting in your way. But anyways, that book really, if you fight procrastination, that's a problem for you. That book helped me a lot, and it might help you as well. And then the last one, which is actually two books, they're both called the same thing, but they both have deep impact on me. They're called Mastery, and one of them is by George Leonard, which is the smaller version, and it's really really great. And then the other one is called by Robert Greene, I think.
Okay.
And I listen to those books or I read them once a year.
Okay.
Super deep impact on me because well, the Robert Greene one, he goes through all of these amazing masters of our time and what made them what they are and how they became what they are. And so it's a good reflection. Like one of my favorite humans that I've never met and persons in history is Leonardo da Vinci. And I love that he was inquisitive and curious, and his approach to life was so vibrant and unique and special. And I've read everything I can get my hands on from him because I just find a great kinship to that amazing person. Um, but anyways, yeah, he talks a lot about him and just Freddie Roach, like who's a boxing coach. So there's a
Yes.
big varied scale in that book. And that book, if out of the three, if you want to get motivated and inspired, Mastery by Robert Greene is incredible. The audiobook form is incredible as well, and then the George Leonard book is amazing as well. So those four books, since you mentioned books, those are kind of like the main pinnacles of growth for me, the very substantial value to me in my life. And so I was able to prioritize my time. I was able to personify procrastination and eradicate it as much as possible. And then with Mastery, I was able to go, that's cool. These are all these legends of their time, and now it's my time to do my legendary thing to achieve and strive for mastery within myself. Yeah.
Fuck me, Ash. That's some powerful shit.
Yeah.
That's awesome,
Yeah, you
dude.
got to be. Yeah.
Dude,
One life.
listen,
You got one life.
on the okay, we'll get into NFTs in a second, but I wanted to talk to you about style in terms of like creating your own style. So you and
Mm.
Carlos have been doing a lot of stuff together. And whenever I see one
Yeah.
of your prints or your renders, for me, it's a bit ambiguous who's doing what, but I know it's a collaboration. So
Sure.
I mean, you can get into that if you want. That's fine. If not, that's also fine.
Yeah.
But there's a definitive style. Like I know fucking immediately that image belongs to you guys, and
Ah, awesome.
and and the the big irony there is that it if you were to explain it to somebody, it's like it's a simple. There's no big fancy backplate. It's a fucking white room, but there is so much soul in there, and that all comes down to the detail. Like
Thank you.
you could touch
Mm.
the rubber. You can see the dust on the fender. It's just fuck. Where does that come from?
Oh man. Yeah, so it is a deep collaboration. And like I wish Carlos was here, we could both talk on it because it's our baby together. It's the MHC, the Make Haste Corp kind of thing happened. So I've known of Carlos's work for many years, and I've always loved, in the CGI space, you just see the art and you go like, this is mental. And you get, and the moment I actually had interaction with him, I was like, not only is his art great, but he's a great
He's such a
person.
great
And the
dude. I
more
really
art,
like him. Yeah.
is just a gem. Yeah, and all around just a great person and incredibly talented and also like very humble, like for his skill level and skill ability and taste, like, and talk about style, like he has a style all his own and it's his thing and I love it too. So in regards to like separating the workflow, what we do is we both pick a car that we love. He picks a car, I pick a car, and we go off and make those cars like separate, but we also share the progress of them so we can get inspired by one another. Through the process of doing that, we share a lot of like resources. So like, oh, like check this out, I have this, HDRI I shot, or this texture that I bought from this place, maybe try to get this one or something. So that, and then at the same time, he's incredibly well, we both try to approach it with like, what can we get out of the maximum, how can we get the maximum result with like cheating, basically. We always joke like we're cheating everything, which is fun because in the beginning our pace was very rapid. We were like, we're going to do 2 cars a month and we're going to blast through them. Then obviously life gets in the way and so on and so forth. But yeah, it's like a mix between that things, and I'm constantly learning from him in his approach to like building certain things, and I'm always just so blown away and surprised and is very motivated because he's a deep OG. Like he really understands his tools, and he's so open with his knowledge of things. And I come from a different side of things, which is like photography and cinematography and those and initial special details of how things work and where my talent and where my resource pool comes from, where I pull references from. And so our approach is a lot different, but we just feed off one another and eventually just share things until like it gets done, basically. So sometimes it's not uncommon to like use the same tire across like multiple cars because it's already done and it's a great resource, or like certain shaders or approach to making shaders. It's just something that we kind of are constantly evolving together, and something that he's taught me so many things about that part of the process, which has been great and incredibly valuable. And I'm just going on top of it and just trying to perfect it, and then give him what he gives me, which is inspiration and motivation to step beyond and keep going, So, but yeah, he's definitely, the project that we create together has been a lot of fun. And the goal with MHC is literally just to make the things that we love and have fun doing it, and then like build a really strong foundation of friendship, and like no money involved, no monetary things, nothing like that, and no intention to go out and make money off of it. It's just literally because we love making things, and it's so pure and so raw, and it's it's been like probably one of my favorite things in my career to make, and collaborations just been so fun, so enjoyable, and a lot of hard work and a lot of learning and a lot of growth that's occurred from it. So yeah.
How often do you guys communicate? Is it like once a week
Oh,
or?
every day.
Oh, really?
Every
Yeah.
day. Yeah, I mean we're talking all the time. Yeah, and not outside of this, we're also we're very aligned with like just things we love. We love the same kind of music,
Yeah.
and we have a same taste in like art and things as well. So outside of cars too, but we also really love cars. As you know, I love cars, so it's like yeah, we're constantly sharing inspiration and seeing new things and sharing videos. So yeah, I'd say like, I guess I didn't realize it, but yeah, we're talking pretty much every day.
So you've just
And
got
through
like
chat and
okay,
calls.
okay, through chat. Cool.
Yeah. But the projects, they take so long. Some of the cars take 6 months to build if it's off and on, like,
Jesus.
a slow development. Yeah. But we only do them until they're done. And we only know when they're done when we both go, yeah, that looks awesome.
That's
So
fucking
let's
rad.
produce
Yeah.
it. Let's put it out. What's really interesting is a lot of interesting things has come from this. I know for him as well, like, a lot of inquiries from the automotive space of like, what are you guys doing? What is this? I don't understand this. Like, can you put our cars in here? Blah, blah, blah. Like, it's been really interesting. But we're just keeping it really sacred, honestly. We don't want to burn anything that has potential to be massively special for us. And it already has been such for me, and I know I can speak for him on this, it's just been a very spiritually like, I think we've been trying to find each other for a long time, and we finally have, and now we're just like running hard and having a blast. And there's a lot of love, trust, and respect in our relationship in regards to building and working on things. And yeah, I've only have a couple other friends that I know of in my life that have this kind of synergy in a workflow, because I'm really intense and I love to work really hard and I like to push super hard, and he's just as intense and very competitive. But it's a very healthy competitive thing too. It's not like berating or like we always say like, oh, make me cry, like I want to cry, like and we push each other like, oh, cry now, like eat that. But then it's a back and forth thing, so. And I think this has taught me a lot about communicating. It's taught me like this project and working with Carlos has taught me a lot about collaborating, the beauty and the power of collaborating with the right collaborator. Also, it's taught me like how to find the right collaborator. For many years, I was thinking there was something wrong with me because like my collaborations weren't going very well. I'd have failed collaborations and I would blame myself. And I realized, oh, that's not necessarily me. It's just a misalignment, a misalignment with like people's intention. And he had the same thing. He would say that he has had, again, and I don't want to speak onto his behalf of this stuff, but yeah, I mean, we've had failed collaborations in the past, so we know how special and precious this is and how like blessed and thankful we are to have these experiences together. And it sounds like we're married, but yeah. I guess we are. We're car married.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
but where did the desire come to collaborate in the first place? I mean, I get because either one of you could be doing those essentially a similar thing, like completely on your own.
Yeah, I don't think it would be good though, if I'm being completely honest. We talked about this recently. If we did it individually, sure, I think it'd be okay, but I don't think it would be nearly as strong. The reason why is because we have that honest, open, trusting relationship where we're constantly pushing one another, and in the most positive way. But yeah, we could just do it. I mean, because before that, he was doing his own thing and I was doing my own thing too. And I think it wasn't until we worked on a project together called Evanetta. It was a 512 Berlinetta
Yes, I
Speciale
know
or something like
that. I
that.
know I posted that.
Okay, great. Yes, I've seen. I think I saw your post on it,
Yeah.
which is so that car to me. I never heard of that car. I found it and I was like, "Well, this is the most beautiful car I've ever seen. It's incredible," and it didn't exist really. So I was like, "Cool, I'm gonna put a Tesla motor in it." And then yeah, did that. And then I was showing Carlos, and I was like, "Hey, I have all this weird footage that I shot with my anamorphic. I'm really into cinematography and stuff, so I have like a bunch of these
Oh, Jesus!
crazy glass and
Wow.
stuff too. This is an old anamorphic. I just had this rehoused from my friend Jim at Rapido, but it's like an anamorphic in here and like a vintage one with like a front variable diopter and stuff. I love cinematography and all
So,
that kind of
what
stuff.
camera are you using with that? Don't forget what you.
Um, yeah, so this one I will use my Lumix S1H. It's actually half the lens. There's another whole thing that's attached to the other back part of this, which is what we call a taking lens. It attaches to this part, and then all of these become the taking lens has a set to be set to pure or true infinity, and it's a whole process. But this is like DIY stuff, like because anamorphic lenses, if you want one, it's good luck because they're very expensive. You have to have like $100,000 or something like that.
Fuck
You
me.
need a set, and there's a whole thing to it. But you can cheat it. You just have to know it. Again, this is like my obsession with cameras, the same thing. But I use a Lumix S1H. At this point, bodies of cameras and sensors, they're all pretty amazing. So it's a matter of like the glass and using that. And then on top of that, it's a matter of like, most importantly, your taste. And then on top of that is what's the point of what you're doing and understanding that language. But that's a whole nother thing. I went off on a tangent. I'm sorry. What were
No,
you asking?
don't apologize. No, no, no. What were we asking about?
Oh, the Evanetta. That's right. Okay.
Yes.
So I had a bunch of footage that I shot out because I live in Southern California, but I'm close to a lot of interesting things like the Mojave Desert and like Salton Sea and stuff. And I just get in my truck and we go drive out there and I shoot a bunch of stuff. And it's like I went out and made this project with my buddy Ozan and my friend Sam. And yeah, I ended up having all this footage, and I was like, let's just take this footage and then kind of cut this together with the Veneta car. And Carlos was down, and man, he just cooked up the most delicious sauce in that project and built this full CGI place and drove the car through. It was just some of the most incredible CGI stuff I've ever seen in regards to cars. And here we are, we had this incredible synergy, and that project was like kind of the catalyst. It was like, I have all this footage, I have this direction, I have this idea, let's put this engine in here, and Carlos took it and made it real and put in the CGI, and it was like this crazy garage, and then like driving down the street that he built, and then in the desert, and he was just like going full ham on everything. It was incredible. After that, we were like, well, we're done with this, and Carlos was like, what do you want to do next? And I was like, I don't know. What do you want to do next? And he's like, why don't we just make cars together? I was like, okay. And that was kind of how we laid it out. We're like,
Okay.
we'll each do a car that we love, and we'll do our rendition of it. And we will just, if we need help, but we know we have very little feedback with one another. Like, I don't want to step on his toes ever. And anytime I have an idea for him, I always ask him, like, would you like an idea? And then, and same for me, because I hate it when people just go like, they just think that their opinion's important to be said, and you're just like, shut the fuck up. I don't want to hear your opinion. But between us, we have a good synergy of trust, And he'll catch me on things, and but he's very forgiving and kind too. Like, he could probably rip me a new one all the time, but he doesn't. But then, yeah, we do the same thing, and I'll, we'll just take the thing and draw little lines and go, oh, maybe consider this, or maybe think about that, or this is that part for this, or did you see this car? But we definitely keep it separate in regards to like the design and the taste and the aesthetic thing. Not for any intention. I think we also just want to have fun making our world come to life in the car itself, and supporting one another with that too. So the car and the design, the world and the space in which they are rendered, then that becomes a kind of a collaboration as well. But since Carlos is such a heavy hitter with CGI, he knows so much. I'm constantly just playing pickup and learning from him as we go. And my eye and my abilities and skills have evolved so fast because I've been able to intimately work with Carlos and understand his process. And then he's been conscious of sharing that with me. And then I'm putting my understanding of photography and cinematography and composition and lighting into that thing. And now it's just been this like massive catalyst. So, and people look at it from the outside, I think a lot of friends of mine that didn't know I was into cars, because I've had many stages in my career. One of them was like doing UI design, and I don't do that stuff much anymore. A lot of my friends were like, well, you did the UI thing, you don't do it anymore. What is this car thing? Why are you doing cars now? And then the Batmobile kind of thing came out. I think it all made sense. Like, okay, like one thing adds to the next, that adds to the next, and it eventually does pay off if in time, so. But yeah, I think that summarizes the difference between style and like, there's really no like clear separation between us in these projects, but I would say the biggest distinguishing thing is like, we will do cars that are similar, but we will strictly build and model and design them on top of our own volition, basically.
I've got you.
Yeah.
The first time I saw some of those renders were like, I don't know if this is going to make me sound like an idiot now, but it really was the first time that I perceived rendering to be an art form. Like,
Oh,
like in a real, my understanding of that side of the business was kind of very limited, and I'd seen some cool shit inside car studios, but when I started out, like there was this program called Showcase, which was also made by Autodesk, which is pretty rubbish, and you could get some okay results with it, and also there's obviously KeyShot, which you can get really good results out of, but
yeah.
my for me, rendering was like when I started to like seriously learn Alias. I remember one of the I went on this course, and the instructor was really into rendering, and he was like, "Oh yeah, like why don't you guys play around with this as well?" And I'm like, "That's great. I'll do that. Like whenever I have time, but I'm not really interested in just like adding colors and putting it in a scene. But
There you go.
there's adding colors, and then there's doing what you guys are doing, and it's just it fucking hell. It really is
Too
like
kind.
No, honestly, if I was gonna do like that's my fucking stuff. That's my taste. I like it's awesome. Like what you guys are doing together is just fucking incredible. Really,
Thank
really
you so
cool.
much. I appreciate that. It's very kind of you, and we do work hard for that. And yeah, because for us, like I guess like it's the whole thing. It's not just the one aspect of it. It's everything. It's the taste. It's the culture. It's the things we love. It's photography. It's cinematography. It's lighting. It's the shading of it. It's all of those things. We pride ourselves on just making the thing from incept idea to final. But my goal always with this stuff, I mean, I'm above all these other things, is like I want to show these to somebody and them to go, "Damn, that's awesome." I don't want them to go, "What program did you use?" We're getting to the point where people don't even care because they're just like, "That's fire, that's sick, that's cool, all right, awesome." Like now it's like, who's gonna build this, and that's a whole nother conversation of development. So
Well, Ash, on
yeah,
on that subject, you made a statement in one of your keynotes where you said like I don't care about brands, I just want to get the job done.
yeah, I don't
Is
care.
and that's where people like ask you, do you use Apple
I
or do
use them
you use
both.
PC?
Yeah, I use them both. They both suck and they both are awesome. you know, Apple doesn't make professional tools anymore. I'm just going to say it. They make great, incredible machines, incredible operating systems, incredibly stable. I love them. I've been using Apple forever, but they don't make powerful machines. They just don't. Because they don't get in bed with NVIDIA and all these guys, which I don't blame them. But then PC, you get the ultra powerful stuff, but the operating system is garbage. So it's like, yeah, it's a best of both worlds. So I use them both, and I just finished. So I use actually three. I use Linux as well because my NAS system, which is like 176 terabytes under here, I have this whole desk thing, this whole thing. But
Jesus.
yeah, I get into it, and honestly, I'm not a tech guy at all. I hate all this stuff, but
You sound
you have to
like it.
live in it.
Fucking hell.
No, you have to get into it in order to like be proficient with it and stuff. But again, it's like little bits of everything. It's like, oh, you want fluid like material and fabric? Well, you need to learn Marvelous Designer. Okay, well, how can I learn this the fastest so I can get the thing done? And you just do it and you understand it and you get it done and then blast to the next one. So yeah.
So how okay on like if you were to on like if you use that as an example with
Sure.
learning fabric, for example,
Yeah.
how much time would you allow yourself to spend on learning how to do that to a good enough level to be able to carry out the bigger picture?
As long as it takes.
Okay.
Sorry, there's no number to that because it's like I might be tired and my information like comprehension might take long, or like every day, like yeah, I don't have it right here. This is my responsibility book, but like all day long, I'll like the night before, and this is something I learned from Vitali. If you're interested in this stuff, I'll have to send you the link to the podcast I did with him because that would like kind of change my life, change the life of many people. But he would make a list before he goes to bed. He makes out all the list of everything he needs to do, all A and B list priority stuff, as you understand from Eat That Frog, and then you just execute through the day. So in that day, to answer your question, if I need to learn something, I would allocate maybe 2 hours of. I'd probably do like 30 minutes of data retention, 30 minutes of application, rotate that to 2 hour cycle, and then take a break. Because real data retention for me is it takes time, and I hate that. But in order to take the data in and then wrap your head around how it works, and then actionable things based on the data, it's a long cycle. I hate it. I hate how long it takes to do these things, but even with my expedited approach to it, it still takes too long. So
Okay.
sometimes 2 hours, like if you find the right tutorial and you're able to understand it, then boom. Or if you're lucky enough to have a friend that's better than you and can show you, then you can be humbled by that. And one of the biggest things that I always try to be is like never be the best in the room. Always be humbled by there's masters around you and
Oh
surround
yeah,
yourself with masters,
100%. Yeah, 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 yeah.
my growth over this past 2 years working with Carlos is like exponential because his openness to teach me, and then my, again, at the beginning of our talking about like my persistence of wanting to learn and to be humbled by that and to be the consummate student, let the ego go and just learn and ask questions and be grateful and give blessings to those that are willing to give you that knowledge, because somebody that's willing to give you that knowledge is incredible, and there's a lot of people out there that are willing to do that. Um, yeah, it's just that's been like a godsend as well. But if you learn something from somebody that has proficiency in something, it's exponentially faster because then you can go right to the trigger and go, I need to make this, for that, for that. Oh, okay, how do you do that? Okay, boom, boom, boom. Okay, great. I do a lot of video recording too. I record a lot of I even make tutorials for myself because I forget. I'll go away and do something else and I have to come back and I'm like, oh shit. So I watch tutorials to like explain things to myself. Yeah.
But when you say that, I mean, are you just when you say you make your own tutorials, are you just using screen capture, or are you
Yeah.
actually filming
OBS.
yourself talking? Okay.
No, I use OBS. I just record the screen and I go like, okay, well, you open the software, you do this. This is how you save for that. Blah blah blah. You kick it out to that because like there's a process in my workflow where I use Cinema 4D, then I go to 3D Coat, and then from 3D Coat I go to ZBrush, then back to Cinema, then back over again. And sometimes I have to include Marvelous Designer into that approach, and sometimes Photoshop, and it just like and navigating that, and then at the end After Effects or DaVinci Resolve, and then yeah, and then that's on PC and Mac, and kind of combining those like all those worlds together, and it's very complicated because you're going from like a voxel-based sculpting program to like a polygonal one, and then you need to bring it in. You need to like rig characters, and there's weight stuff that you have to figure out, and it's just like yeah, it's a whole thing.
If you set aside your like directorial, I don't know if that's a word, but if
Directorial
you
is a
if
word,
you
yeah.
like directorial or yeah, art director or film, whatever, if you put that aside and and we focus specifically on VFX or concept art, what how would you describe yourself? Would you describe yourself as a generalist?
Oh yeah, I mean, unfortunately, there's too many questions and inquiries. I think that's where I think I get mostly inspired by Da Vinci because I think he was a much a generalist, opposed to what people might think of him as being a master. I think he was more of a generalist, but yeah, totally a generalist, and that I think that's
Okay.
across everything. I'm a generalist in everything because I mean, okay, generalist, but I'm really intensely a generalist. If that makes sense,
No,
yeah.
no, no. But that's the thing. If
Yeah,
you just said generalist normally, it doesn't sound impressive, and it sounds like
sure,
you're a bit of a jack of all trades,
master of
master of
none.
none.
Yeah.
But I don't. But absolutely. I mean, it's the antithesis of that. I
Mm.
just I I think what you are great at doing. I mean, you've clearly explained that is that you do jump from you'll dive into one program, you'll get what you need out of it, and then you'll
That's
be
it.
able to dive into another one,
Hmm.
and that's always been a great envy of mine. And
It's really
I
uncomfortable.
think
I must say,
yeah,
it's uncomfortable. It's a lot of just angry annoyances all day long. Like you don't use a program for like 6 months, you have to go back to it, and then you forget everything, and then you have to watch the same tutorials
yes,
again, and it's just like fuck, like why can't this be faster? But that's the cost of being a journalist. But at the same time, I guess that's kind of like if we look at the MHC project, the Make Haste project, as a case study of it. That's a culmination of all these different efforts in one thing. It's not we're not just using one program; we're using multiple different programs. Like Carlos has been using Rezome for like UV and stuff now. Like that's we use Substance Painter for them sometimes. That's a whole nother departure. And then like there's all kinds of different things that are added to this stuff as well. I used to use Fusion 360, which is a CAD based thing. Now I use Moy a little bit because I don't want to be a jerk, but Autodesk like ruins things for the most part, and it's very frustrating. I even like bought 3D
no,
Studio Max, and
you can say that, and that's not being a
yeah,
joke. I don't know if you're aware of how much Alias costs, but it's like
it's
fucking 20 grand.
yeah,
It's
yeah, it's not
ridiculous.
right.
It's
SolidWorks is,
so
but I
ridiculous.
just use moments of inspiration for like doing like because it's really good for Boolean operations. But now like Blender's free, and Blender does incredible stuff too, and my friend Mache uses it. So but I haven't made that jump into that. But I will say, this probably sounds random, but what I do is I find a project that I'm really interested in. I have an idea of an execution. Then that's how I learn. I go, okay, well, like right now, like outside of MHC, I have a couple other projects, and like when I vision the project, it's almost like I want to make stills of a movie that I have in my mind, and I'm gonna use all these programs to do it, and then I'm gonna perfect that as I go, and solve it as I go through it, basically. And there's no other way that I like to learn than applied learning. Applied learning is great because it's beneficial to you. You get to see the results and you get to apply them in real time, and then you get this like incredible experience, which like ends up leading into this really awesome, just an awesome journey, basically. Because then you can go at the end of the day, you can go, I sat here, I had an idea, and I executed it this way. You talk about style. I think style comes from all your failures. Your style is what you failed, basically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
striving, getting through the failure. But if you don't try, you can't have style. So you need to fail. So it's like all connected, you know. I always say that I fail privately and I succeed publicly. At least I try to.
Yes.
I
No, well, I mean, a lot of people do that, and then of course, the sad byproduct of that is that a lot of kids just think, okay,
yeah.
well, Ash is this fucking legendary concept artist, and everything he touches is
No, that's
is
a lie.
amazing. Which
Yeah.
everything that we see
Sure.
is, but we don't see all the failures,
Yeah.
and that's something that yeah, it needs to be talked
Yeah,
about more.
absolutely. I mean, potentially like when I can develop myself a little bit more. The reason why I put on that kind of face is because it's for clients and it's currency of like maintaining that prestige, whatever it is. But yeah, I mean, my failure
Yeah.
rate is getting lower the more I get at it, right? Because the
Well,
closer to
I,
mastery.
I thought I would have
Well,
thought so.
hopefully,
Yeah.
right? Like you
Yes.
understand, okay, well, like this works for that, but then you diversify it, right? So you're not continually making the same thing, but as you diversify your abilities and the projects that you do, like you eventually figure out like, okay, this works and this doesn't work. And but yeah, there's definitely failures. There has to be, because if you don't have those failures, like here's a perfect example of a big project that has so much, I put so much money and time and energy into, and it took me like 2 years, and it's completely on the shelf now. It's not finished. I had this huge idea for making this Star Wars project, and I had this really cool idea, and went out and executed it, shot it, brought all my friends together. All this stuff happened, and COVID happened. There was a million reasons why it didn't work, but at the end of the day, it's just a big failure. And just go, oh, that's it. It is what it is. I'll come back to it some other day, maybe, but for now, and man, I cannot wait to show it, because like I designed some of the craziest stuff for this thing, and had some incredible friends that we worked on some awesome stuff together, like recreated full characters that I think could go toe to toe with like Darth Vader in regards to like design and originality and uniqueness, and new ships and the design of those ships that could go against like the Millennium Falcon. And like I just love that kind of stuff. And someday maybe it'll see the light of day, but until then it's just sitting there. So that's a failure. And to be completely honest, my wife helped pull me out of that depression, because I was like I was upset with myself because there were so many friends that were involved with it, and I felt like I let everybody down. But my wife reminded me, she's like, everybody just wanted to do it because they believe in you. It's fine if you don't succeed in it. They just wanted to enjoy the ride. And I clarified that with some friends, and they were like, yeah, it's all good. Like it is what it is. This is a big ambitious project, and not everything gets done. So once I got past that, I realized like it's not as bad as you think. You just have to kind of work through it and communicate and kind of get through them. But you're supposed to fail. After that failure, I learned a lot about filmmaking. So much so that now I have my other film that I'm just about to finish, and it was like that was also a slog. But if I didn't have this one failure, then I would have, potentially failed in this one. I was listening to my buddy, my actor in my latest film, Chimera, sent me this really great link to Tarantino talking about. He was working at a video store, and he wanted to be a filmmaker no matter what. He went out and put all his money and made a film, and he got it back and realized as he was editing it, it was a pile of shit, and he was depressed, and he was like, fuck. But he said, okay, well, that sucks. And then he went off and he started writing True Romance, I think. He just didn't stop. And Tarantino didn't stop. Why should you? Why should I? You work through the failures, and the failures humble you. They teach you something. It's teaching you something about life that you need to learn, which is either patience or persistence or commitment. One of those things you're supposed to learn. And from my experience, the most challenging art form of all the art forms is filmmaking by far. It's the hardest thing of all time. Is you got schedules and actors and story and plot and shooting and coverage and editing and pace and all the things. And you get one of those things off and something's right and it just falls to shit. So, but I'm super excited because my short film is very unique and I'm very proud of it. And that's a very hard thing to say as a director from something to be proud of it. That means that there's something there. You shouldn't be proud of it. You should usually hate it. It's not perfect, but it's definitely, when I look at it and I watch it, I go, that's my film. Like nobody else is making that film. That's my thing, which is ultimately what I wanted to do on that kind of, that part of the process. So, but again, jumping all over the place here, but yeah.
No, it's don't apologize. It's I can't wait to see it. When is it
I'm going to
out?
release it in a weird way.
When do you?
We're doing some final sound engineering and mixing right now. Early August is when we'll probably be done, and then we're probably going to shop it around. Thankfully I know a lot of directors and producers and people, so I'm going to probably show it to them and see if there's any bites on continuing this, because I've kind of built this world to be modular and potentially turn it into a series or a film, a feature film, or some sort. Um, so that probably be there, and then looking into film festivals, and then if I don't decide to do that with Tyler and I, Tyler's my producer, he's also my actor, so if we don't decide to do that, then we're gonna just release it online. But we have a cool way we're gonna release it, which is not just like releasing it online. We're gonna do it in increments, and it's gonna be a fun little interactive thing. So yeah, long story short, not for probably
So
another 2 months. Yeah, probably two
not
months
for a
depending.
while.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess in today's language
Yeah.
that is a long time, but we can wait 2 months. I
No,
thought you were
no.
going to say a
Because like
year.
I
So
said, I've been working on it. I think I started writing words to page like a year and a half ago, or maybe a year. I'm so bad with times, and COVID kind of threw everything off for me. But yeah, from there to now, I'm just really stoked that we're this close to finishing it. I mean, the VisFX alone was just like a total slog. It's so taxing and exhausting mentally. But and also Carlos is a part of this too. So like Carlos and I executed a big portion of this, of parts of this thing, which is really exciting and very fulfilling as well, and very fulfilling for him too, because I think people just think that he's just a car guy, but he's actually so dynamically talented. I mean, he worked with Alberto on
yes,
the Love, Death, and Robots, the really incredible one, Jabrero. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
and like you
yeah.
can feel his presence on that thing. So he's a powerful dude, man, powerful talent. Yeah, yeah,
Fucking
excited.
hell, Ash, on you. So on. I'm gonna jump into
Sure.
NFTs
Yeah,
if
yeah,
if
yeah.
if that's okay. I don't really know where to start. So we kind of, it seems like at the moment we are heading into a bit of an NFT winter along with
Yeah.
crypto and all that sort of stuff. And I think a lot of people are a lot of people think that the whole NFT thing is a
Mm-hmm.
is a scam, and I would
Mm-hmm.
my only comment on that is like, there's a lot of projects that are scams, but the technology is very fucking real, and there's some great projects out
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Um, what
Yes.
presume I didn't know. I mean, I assumed that you have your own NFTs, but I haven't seen them and I don't know anything
Mm-hmm.
about them. So if
Good.
if
Yeah.
if you do have, which I presume you do, what is it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I have I think we've minted maybe 6 pieces. It's all fine art stuff, and I my Genesis NFT actually sold at Christie's. The first one I ever sold was at Christie's auction house.
Fuck.
The way I approach things is you have one first impression, so make it count, and then secondary is remember your value in the world. Don't saturate it. I've seen so many artists ruin their future art value by oversaturating the market. They think that this is an ATM. There's humans on the other side of this thing that have money, that are smart and communicating with themselves too. We're talking about collectors and people in this space. It's a whole nother economy, basically. Are we in a winter? Yes, of course we are. There's a recession that's potentially occurring. Things are constantly moving and shifting. What's happening now is a bubble burst, and everything is shaking loose. Things are getting way too crazy, And I'm surprised it lasted as
Yeah,
long
me
as it
too.
did. Is it affecting me? Sure, but at the same time, it's like it's going to affect everybody. NFTs as a technology is incredible. It's amazing, and so if you're an artist and you're not embracing this, I feel sorry for you. Honestly, you should embrace this because it's an audit. It's an at the core of it, it's an artist sovereignty tool. It gives you back the power. It allows you as a digital artist to appoint value as an author of something. It's not happened before. We're using the blockchain and so on and so forth. There's a ton of noise. There's a ton of scams. There's a ton of horrible people in this space, which is really unfortunate. I'm hoping this whole thing shakes all of those garbage people out of it because at the core of it, the beauty of it, there's a lot of beauty in this thing and it's really amazing. But you got to be very cautious of how you move through it. It's like Game of Thrones. I mean, you don't know who's going to cut your throat and who isn't. You got to be careful. But yeah, so in regards to NFTs, yes, I've minted a very few amount considering I have. Remember we talked about like years, my whole career, for years I would put together like passion projects. I could just throw those on and mint them and become an NFT and sell them, so on and so forth. But it just didn't feel right. So everything's moving forwards. It's just like making the art. And that art for me is like really when I'm just given open canvas to make whatever I want, that's the stuff that it matters most. And that's kind of attaching itself into the fine art world. And I'm learning so much about that ecosystem. So I'm also good friends with Mike Beeple. I've
Yes.
known Beeple for like a very long time. And yeah, he's been kind enough to like share that one of his favorite artists. I don't know if I don't know if that's the case, but it seems like I've had an influence on his career, and he's been really kind enough to share that with collectors and people that are prominent in this space. Because at the end of the day, once all this noise clears, then it's going to come down to curation and documentation. And if this thing becomes a serious part of art history, which it already is, that's all going to be gathered, and then there's going to be a movement that kind of correlates with this thing. But again, as I mentioned, digital art is attached to technology because we're using the computer and technology. That's already competitive enough. That means the art gets developed and evolved very quickly. On top of that, now attached to currency, we're in this really weird space. And not only is it currency, but it's also like it's it's a new currency. It's a very new thing, and it's very volatile because people are it's like a baby basically, so but outside of that, the technology is incredible. I would really embrace it as an artist. I would embrace it, but just be very cautious and wary of this, just like anything. Like you could say that the US dollar is a scam. The FBI, or not the FBI, but they're dumping they're reprinting tons of money. It's all corrupt in certain ways. The way you look
Yeah.
at it, it can all be corrupted, and it is all corrupted in a sense. But at the same time, it is very beautiful, and it's a very special thing. And for an artist, I would hope that we can embrace it as being this beautiful thing that creates sovereignty. Will you sell things for 69 million? Probably not. Mike will probably never. That's like a lightning bolt that changed his life for the good and the bad. So but have realistic expectations and work hard towards it and socialize with it and understand the technology, because the technology, in my opinion, I could be completely wrong, I don't think it's going anywhere. I think there's too many people in the play already, and it's already happening. It's going to hit some rocky parts, and sure, it's going to have its problems, but I think you just have patience and write it out and have good intentions, and it'll eventually work its way out. And literally, can't you say that about life?
Yeah. No,
you know,
absolutely.
be patient and work through it, and have compassion and work through things and be persistent. I mean, you could say that about anything in life and have a good outcome at it. Mostly, unless it's something bad, obviously. But I'm just thinking about positive things here. So yeah.
So Ash, the six pieces that you put out today, can you talk a
Mhm.
little bit about them? You said they were the first one was a fine art
Mhm.
piece that sold at Christie's. What about
Yeah, that's right.
what about was that like a standalone piece?
Yeah, that was called degradation. So that was like so I had built like this collection of work called Evident Mirror. So every year, as I mentioned, I try to make like 1 to 2 passion projects where it's like a weird short film, experimental. Like one of them was like Epoch I made with my friend Chris Beyer, which is like about space and all this stuff. And I made Epoch 2, and then We made a thing called None together, and like there's just always like random things, and they were just like a lot of fun. So with Evident Mirror, it was more or less like me kind of trying to contemplate like our stage into to becoming sentient beings and technology and where this is all going and stuff like that. So there's like a deep kind of theme behind the piece. So the degradation piece that was sold at Christie's was kind of like I try to make a culmination of all of my work over all the years as the photorealism stuff and the design aspect of things, and then the motion graphics side of things, and the very colorful pop art stuff that I love. And so I can send you a link to it, but if you just type in like Ashthorpe Christie's, it'll come up, or Ashthorpe Christie's degradation, it'll come up and you can see it. And it was a really surreal moment, honestly. I'm a digital artist, self-taught, and here I am having an auction at Christie's where the bidding's going crazy, and I was just like, it was a whole nother life experience I never
Fucking
knew that
hell.
I would have. But you only have that life experience if you put yourself out there,
Yeah,
you know, and you
yeah,
put
yeah.
yourself, you have a forward-thinking mind, and you put it out there. And not every hit's is a slam dunk, but you're at least trying, you know. And then the other pieces that have been minted are literally just a part of the series. So if you go to ashthorpe.art, it has the rest of the pieces that are in that collection basically, and they're all made them in using the computer, and yeah, and it's all just really weird stuff that I love that's in my head that I like to get out. So, and I made the music for it. That's one thing I really had a lot of fun with. So, um, yeah, that was fun making it. Big thanks to my friend Anthony Scott Burns, and also my buddy Afe. He goes by Afe, AEPH. He scored a couple of my projects as well, which is he's an incredible talent. And he showed me a lot of really great tips about learning music really quickly. So I was able to like get in there and use my Ableton and my MIDI controller and make this crazy orchestral, visceral soundscape thing that went on to it. So
Jesus.
a lot of fun. There's no stopping. You just kind of, oh, I need a score. Okay, cool. Like go make it. You know, learn about it and understand it. And yeah, but yeah, that's the
Fuck.
NFT space.
Dude,
I'd embrace it. Yeah.
so I mean, I think a lot of people are, but I think a lot of people have a lot of people in the car design space that have jumped in or in the car design community that have jumped in. They it seems like there's like they don't. I mean, no one's an expert, right? The technology's still
No one
pretty
is.
new, and there's still a lot
Yeah.
to experiment with and whatnot. But there just seems like there's this whole smart contract element that a lot of people are
Hmm.
overlooking, and
Oh
they
yeah. No.
oversimplifying it in terms of like, I want to do a scribble on this piece of paper, I'm going to take a photo of it and mint it,
Hmm.
and that's going to, and there was a
Right.
moment where you could do that. There was a whole trash art movement, and
Hmm.
using like things like photo mask
Movements
and
happened in weeks. Movement happens in weekends. That's how fast
right,
it was going.
right,
Yeah, because it was
exactly.
attached to technology and currency. That's why we were seeing movements and eras happening so rapidly we couldn't hold on to it. Yeah.
So then now, the way to embrace it is to make something meaningful and make something you believe in. And
Shouldn't that have been the thing the whole time?
well, yeah, absolutely. And this is what Mike was
Yes.
talking. This is what Mike was talking about as well. He said, like,
Mm.
I mean, that piece that sold for all that money. I mean, it was never ever the intention. I mean, he showed up
Yes.
every single fucking day. He put in the
Yes.
work, and
Yep.
it was like,
And
talk
he'll be
about
doing this no matter what. 69 million, whatever, doesn't matter. That's he'll still do it. Yeah.
exactly. And when he
Hmm.
started it, there's no fucking ways that you could have predicted
No.
this moment.
No, of course not. No. It was really crazy because I was on. There was this thing that we were all using during the beginning of all this crazy stuff called Clubhouse. I think it was like an app,
Yes, yeah, 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 yeah.
and he was kind enough to invite me to like. There's like the listeners and the people on the top. But when his Christie's auction happened, he invited me to it, and I was so I mean, just being a human to human, another creator. I was just so happy for him. But I also realized that it was like his life's never going to be the same. It's going to be much more complicated, and I just hope that he is going to be okay. Like
Yeah.
ultimately, I was like, I hope that he's a very. I mean, I'm really blown away. He's got such thick skin, and so smart, and so strong. And I'm just really happy for him and his family and stuff too, because he's wearing that crown of thorns pretty well. Like most people would crumble underneath this pressure, honestly. because it's not. You would think it's like, oh, this is great. It would be great if you had that kind of fuck you money and you just said, okay, I'm out, and then literally disappeared. You can do that all day long, but he's not. He's doubling down, which is even crazier, which I
Yeah.
love, and it goes to show you how like strong he feels about what he's doing. You know,
I mean,
but
it's just,
it should
but
have been the whole time. People should have been making things that they care about. You know, but
yeah.
instead they didn't, and they were just juicing the system, and that's. I really think that a big part of why we are here is because people just got crazy, and it was like the craziest level of gambling that people could do, and lots of money laundering was happening through that and stuff. It's like and you ask me, and I would through the whole thing. People ask me, I say I'm not interested in anything other than the art and the beauty of the sovereignty technology. Everything else I could give two shits less. I don't care about the CryptoPunk monkey thing. That doesn't even compute to me. That's like Pokemon cards. Like I can appreciate that it exists, but it doesn't have any value to me personally because I
Yeah.
don't see the value. Other people do. Cool. CryptoPunks has a value to you. You want to do that? Cool. But like, is that going to have value in 5 years? Is it going to have value in 10 years? Maybe. I don't know. I can't predict the future. Nobody can. But my guess is probably not as much as it does now. But who am
Have
I to
you
say though?
have you bought much?
No, I've not bought any because I'm like the art that I would support or would want to is it's too far out of my reach. I'm not wealthy, so
No, I'm not. I'm
yeah,
not talking. I'm not talking about NFT. I'm not talking about CryptoPunks. I'm just talking about
Mm.
NFTs in general.
None. I've not none.
Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to buy some for my friends, but like even then, it's like, damn, that's a lot of money. Before even NFTs, I'm like, if I'm going to spend $10,000 on a piece of art, I mean, I got to be doing pretty well in order to be
Yeah.
like cool
Yeah. No,
spending ten
you've got
thousand
to.
dollars on something. Yeah,
Yeah. When you start like spending 10 grand on an art, then
yeah.
things must be going
My
pretty
life has to
fucking
be good.
well.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
exactly. And it unfortunately, I mean, that's based on my design. Like again, I could have started a studio and so on and so forth and made a bunch of money, blah blah blah, sold things and this and that. That was never my intention though. My intention is to have sovereignty to make what I want when I want to make it. So my life is designed around that. Therefore,
Yes.
the affluent money is not necessarily hit there, but I'm at a place of stasis where I'm very happy. I control me, what I want to do. There's a price to that, and hey, I live a great life. I'm very blessed and thankful. Money will probably eventually come. It's just going to take time. I think it's going to be. It's much faster now that this technology has occurred because now I can tie the things that I love to make with money, which is great. And I'm learning so much about the space and technology and the art world and the fine art world and stuff that I never thought I would be encountering. But it's like shit. I'm this self-taught digital artist, and I'm selling stuff at Christie's on the same lot as a Basquiat and a Warhol. It's like, what the fuck is going on here?
Yeah.
But it
That's
happened.
fucking pretty mad. Yeah.
It is
That's
really mad.
insane.
Yeah.
That's
In this
awesome though.
space too,
It's
it's a matter of like how you make your work, the value of your work, the value of your career. It's not just the thing that you make now, it's what you are from the past. That's why if you're a young artist, you're getting into this, be cautious of the legacy in which you're making. If this
Well,
is your
dude, this
pursuit.
is, but that's exactly, and that's the thing people need to be very fucking aware of, like
Very aware
legacy,
of.
because
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that's the thing. The technology is the blockchain that
Yeah.
it documents what you've done, and it's going to be there forever for people
Forever.
to be
Yeah.
to see. So if you've minted a bunch of stuff and
Yeah.
you super stoked that you've sold something for 10 grand or whatever it is that
Sure.
is basically worthless, at some point it's going to be worth 50 cents, and you're going to be the fucking asshole that sold that.
Well, you are, and then the person that's bought it too. So again, because like
Yeah.
the only time I ever wanted to buy one is to support a friend, but I'd rather give them that money, or I'd rather collaborate with them to have that experience to turn that energy into something bigger beyond, if that's the case.
Okay.
So, but again, it's just so hard to navigate those kind of things as well. It's a very
But as for
challenging
you
world.
guys, were you and Carlos, for example, never tempted to turn any of your cars into NFTs? Because they would make
No.
fucking, they would, that, I mean, I'm sure they would have done pretty well.
You never know. I mean, potentially, but again, it just like so. What I learned at that stage when I was like entering it was like it was timing. Timing and luck was 80% of the equation. I realized 20% was like the hard work and the good art. There was a point where it was literally like you didn't even have to make anything of value. Then you just had to be at the right place at the right time. And when you're not at the right place at the right time, which is me and most everybody else, or I was at the right place at the right time, but I just didn't feel like it was morally connected to like my approach to things, and I didn't want to be attached to certain like platforms and their ways, their ethics didn't really align with me. So, but yeah, I think we talked about it. I mean, Carlos again is a very humble person. I don't want to speak on his behalf, but like we both kind of were just like, no, we'll just do it. Like we're just going to continue making this without those expectations, because the moment that you do that, then the purity and the rawness and for me and for him, I believe too, is like the rawness and the beauty of purity of creation really just gets stripped down. And then you're in this weird place where if you don't make a certain amount of money, then there's no value and so on and so forth. And then you get in this weird expectation circle, and then depression takes in, and then it ruins it. So that's why we've both been like, we've been approached for certain weird things that have occurred, like, video games and movies, all kind of stuff, to put these things in there. And we're both like, nah, like, we don't want to do that. Like, as of now, like, none of that's interesting to us. The interesting thing is, like, how can we be better? How can we give value to ourselves and in the world at large? How can we elevate and level things up, and that's really, I think, that we find fascinating. We're really excited because we're working on. We have a big bomb for this project about to drop, and like, I'd say like, shit. Hopefully in a month we'll have a big bomb, new builds, a whole thing that's coming, which I'm really excited about. And we've been working tirelessly on it right now, so super excited for that. But yeah, no
Dude,
NFTs though. Yeah.
no NFTs.
Yeah, no NFTs. That's not. Yeah,
Okay.
keeping it NFT free on this stuff too. But not because I don't love
So
NFTs. I love NFTs. It's just,
it needs to
yeah,
be the right thing.
yeah,
You
yeah.
need
Of
to have the
course, yeah, yeah. And you have to be very cautious of the ecosystem and what you're doing. And right now, it's a bear market, and it's like, just be cautious of that, and until things resettle down. But yeah, hey, again, it's like, it's just stock market kind of stuff, so yeah, it's
Ash.
currency. Yeah.
Have you done much teaching?
I used to partake, Mache, Andrew, and AJ and I, the four of us, started an online education platform called Learn Squared. And so I've done some classes there, but nothing in the real world. Maybe someday.
So I'm aware of Learn Squared actually. A good friend of mine who's also a concept artist. I mean, he came from the car design world. His name's Christian Grajewski. He's a good friend of mine, and Scott's former publishing company made one of his books or published one of his books. Great guy, and he's a big fan of yours as well.
Oh,
And he's bought a couple of tutorials from you guys as well.
cool. I'm no longer
And
affiliated with the school, but yeah, that's awesome. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to make sure I said that because I don't think I did. Yeah.
no, it's okay. No, but I wanted to know like how that went.
Oh, it was incredibly challenging. Building an educational platform is very humbling, and learning to teach. But yeah, learning to teach is like learning to let go, learning to give, and learning to, um, yeah, it's if you're really teaching, it's very challenging, and learning to make like tutorials that like can last 5 years, like, and your educational flow and how you like when you're doing something that is effortless to you, it's often not effortless for other people, and so you have to articulate every step that you didn't really think about. There's second nature kind of stuff.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's difficult, and extracting that data from teachers and building a platform to do so is very labor intensive, and the platform itself is really challenging too. And yeah, I departed from it because the same thing as a podcast. I was like, okay, in life, did I say I wanted to be a teacher? No. But did I find fulfillment in it? Absolutely. Am I thankful that I did it? Sure. But I would rather do these other things. And yeah, it was a life choice to make that call and that switch, basically. Yeah. But I don't regret it. It
I
was
was
amazing. It was a great process. I love them. I love those guys. Like, they're incredible. So it was great to be a part of that.
I was looking at it a lot because around that time, I mean, this is going back a few years ago. I was really keen to do something like that myself. But
Mhm.
this was like pre-corona, pre every fucking
Build a
Tom, Dick, and
learning
Harry.
platform.
Yeah,
Oof,
yeah, I was
it's
really,
tough, man.
really. I had the idea about 5 years ago, and we filmed some classes,
Mm.
and like just they were kind of like pilots, and then yeah, it started. Then like one platform popped up, and it kind of shook me a little bit, like in the car design space, because there was nothing in the
Mm.
car design space, and there still really isn't anything decent. It's still
Mm.
pretty shit. And then of course like Corona happened, and then every Tom, Dick, and Harry like started doing tutorials, and now I've kind of gone like, I don't know, I don't really know if
Sure.
well, the thing is,
Well, if your work is
my
quality,
idea
it'll
was
last.
not necessarily to
Mm.
put my work on there, but it would be the um I've worked in a lot of different places with a lot of
Mm.
fucking great designers, great modelers, great viz artists, and my idea was to kind of have this
Sure.
all-star cast and have
Mm.
like cherry pick a certain amount of them and have them
Hmm.
on this platform. And we might still well, exactly that. And I remember my friend
Sure.
Christian
So it's like Learn
telling me
Squared,
about
kind of.
Learn Squared, and
Yeah.
he's like, check this shit out.
Yeah.
Um, and y- exactly,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. The
So
top tier talent being taught, teaching you. Yeah. Mhm. Nomen's kind of similar too, because like Nomen's using top tier thing. The difference that we had with Nomen and all those things is that our approach was you're going to take two high level working professionals, and the idea kind of came about. I think when Mache and I were working on Ghost in the Shell, we decided, well, because when we were working together, we were showing each other all these like things that we didn't know from one another. So the original thing was like two professionals at high levels from different disciplines teaching each other their traits, and then in line of seeing that, then you get to make a tutorial out of it so that people can go. It's not just like a tutorial of like, then you click
yeah,
this button
yeah,
and then you
yeah,
click that. That's
yeah,
not really
yeah,
what interesting. It's about the mindset of having a problem solving and approaching things in a high level, you know. But yeah, I think I'm not sure what it is now. I think it's probably came in like, well, I don't know. The last ones that I watched are great. It's just like super beneficial, lots of value. Like, and again, it kind of comes back down to like if you're going to invest in anything, like invest in yourself. And like I would have dreamed of having like the ability to have that much of an intimate reaction and interaction with one of my favorite artists,
yeah,
and
yeah.
to pay like
Well,
a couple
I mean,
$100. I mean,
well, that,
damn, you know, like yeah, talk about it, an investment well spent. It's $10,000 NFT or like
yeah.
a two
I mean,
hundred
I
dollar
agree as
educational
well, you know,
experience that could change
and
your
that was
life.
kind
You
of where the
know,
genesis of the idea
yeah,
came from. And I
it's
thought
crazy.
at the time when I first thought of it, I thought like, oh, this is fucking amazing. And then, and then like the more I thought about
Mm.
it, the more I thought it was a great idea, but I also realized that, you know, it's only a matter of time before other people start doing the same thing. The technology's there, and I was surprised nobody had thought it or had done
Yeah,
anything yet, you know. But it's still like in the car design space, it's still pretty bullshit,
sure.
you know. So you never know, but yeah, yeah,
Well, if you're talking about it, chances are somebody else is,
absolutely,
you
yeah,
know, and it's
yeah.
a matter of who has the balls to take the
Or
action to do it,
whatever
you
you
know,
want to say. You don't need to
or
be
the ovaries
politically
or whatever you
correct,
want to
yeah,
say.
Ash.
So,
It's okay.
yeah. Oh, you know, I feel like I have to nowadays, which is fine, but yeah, it's like that's another reason why I departed from being in the public space. It's like no matter what you do and what you say, even if you have a positive and like positive
Fuck
approach,
that,
it's
yeah.
like
Dude,
you've offended me, but I don't want to
I'm
get into
I'm
that. So,
conscious of
yeah.
your time. I wanted to the
Yeah.
last thing I wanted to ask you, or probably second last thing I want to ask you, is about the Ken Block project that you did a while ago. Given that this is kind of somewhat rooted
Mm.
in car design, um, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes, the
Yeah,
Cosworth.
I think you're talking
Yes,
about the
yes.
Kazi project and then maybe the Fox body. Yeah. The Cosworth. Yeah. Yeah, so Ken comes from my world of Southern California originally, I think. And we actually ironically went to the same junior college at different times. He's a little bit older than me. But we are all kind of like 2 degrees of separation. I was making a bunch of cars on my own and I was just having fun doing them. And I was like talking to a friend, and another friend was there, and I said, ideally it would be cool if like Ken Block saw this car and would want to build it. And then my friend Sam, he was like, "Hey, I know his producer. If you want me to link you up with him," I said, "Yeah, sure, that'd be great." And then his producer introduced me to Ken. I showed Ken my work. Ken thought they were real, and that was in. And then he asked me, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I want to build all your cars. I want to make them all in 3D, and like we can build deliveries and all this stuff." So he was like, "Cool." He was into it. I mean, why wouldn't he? And then the first thing, so he was like, "What do you want to build?" And I gave him a list of all the Fords I loved, because at the time this is what he was with Ford. And he was like, "Okay, well, we just did the truck." And I'm like, "Fuck, I wanted to do the truck." And then XYZ, there was other things that they had in the list. But then there was the Cosworth that he was like thinking about doing. And then the Fox body was another thing that kind of came down the road. But again, it was about being persistent, talking with Ken, giving my all into these projects. This is like when I was still very new at building these things and modeling and stuff. And yeah, I just would like, we had similar tastes. He would send me a couple of things of reference, and I'd say, "Cool," and I'd make renders and model some stuff and go, "How you like this?" And he was like, "This is fucking great." And then we would just evolve that. And Ken is a very like he's a powerhouse. That guy. He's an incredible business person, very forward thinking about things. He's also an incredible race car driver. He has he's also an awesome dad. He's got 3 kids, and like he's started many businesses that have been very successful. He has great instincts. So he's kind of like, to me, like the whole process for me is always like I wanted to be
Yeah,
close to
he's
somebody
fucking. There's no
brilliant. I
no doubt.
consider
Yeah.
Ken to be a brilliant, like he's a very unique person. Legend, because very few people, you can say like, oh, they're a very accomplished entrepreneur, they're a business maker, they're also a race car driver. They can make like Gymkhana videos, and like these are all big productions. They have massive efforts, and he's successful at all these things. And he's got a racing career as well too. So I just wanted to like that, and then we started to develop like there was alignments. We started to develop like a casual friendship that was really fun too, because like growing up, I was super into cars. At the time, I had a Subaru. It was a pig eye, and this was when Gymkhana 1 came out, and I think that was when he was just annihilating that freaking pig eye STI. Maybe it was a Hawkeye STI, and I was like, "This is the best shit I've ever seen in my life," and I was just so pumped. So for a long time, he had a legacy and inspiration for me, and getting a chance to meet with him and work with him. And we just have a lot of tastes in common. And then the Fox body came up, and I was like, yeah, don't worry, I got you. And then literally I built it, and he's like, "This is fucking awesome." Like he had very little like notes, I felt like, which was really incredible. He let me just do my thing. And ironically, the time that I had met with him, he flew me out to Missouri. We did an episode of the Hoonigan channel together. This is the craziest thing. I get flown out. I meet with Ken. This is fucking awesome. I think this was the second time I met him. I met him at SEMA. I go there. He's at a rally event, and he's got for rally events, I don't follow and understand the rules because they always change, but you have to set time pace on the course, and you do it before you race, I think. So it's like called recce, I guess. And he was like, "Hey, let's put Ash in the car while I'm doing this in the course, and then we can have some video for the thing." And I'm like, I had zero expectations. I just thought I would go there, take some photos, have some laughs, get to hang out with Ken and the awesome guys. So I get in the Cosworth, the design. So I'm sitting in the 3D model. I'm like tripping out, and yeah, we go at speed, and I'm sitting in the rally car that I designed with Ken, and he's driving it at full speed, full throttle, 90 degrees through corners. And so we do that, and then we come back. We had to go back up through it, and then he didn't have a chance to get Alex, his co-driver, in. So we go out and do it again. And I'm like, there's multiple levels in my life where I'm like, how is this possible? But it's all through manifestation. So yeah, that was one of the moments. And there's a video on YouTube on Ken's channel as well, which is like, I remember getting out there like, "What do you think?" They put the camera. I'm like, I don't know. I have no words. Like, what do you want me to say? This is fucking crazy, you know? Like, this was in my computer a little bit ago, and like now I'm here and I'm sitting in it, and like one of my favorite drivers and like an icon of my youth is like taking me around. It's just like, yeah, Ken is like one of those very special people that's very giving
Yeah,
and
yeah,
knows the value
yes,
of doing that and giving and sharing things. And very few people understand that high level. And he understands that gives a
yes.
significant value to him and what he's doing as well, like by sharing that love and so on and so forth. And yeah, and then I went off. So we had the Fox body. That was a concept that we did turn that into NFTs too, and that design doing those NFTs turned into budget that will eventually go into the capital of making the car, which they have many projects going on. So I'm not in charge of Hoonigan, but eventually it will get made, and I'm very excited about that. That's just like that's a Hoonigan Ken Block kind of operation. They have their own speed of it. And then yeah, then the other time that was really crazy is I did the livery of his trophy truck because this is like when he was diversifying his driving and then he was like, "Hey Ash, where are you at this weekend?" And I was like, "Oh, I'll just be at home." He's like, "Come down to Placerville and check out the truck." And I was like, "Okay, cool." And Placerville's right next to Mexico, and it's about 4 hours drive from me, 3 hours drive or whatever. So I go down there, and it's like by 10 o'clock
I'm no, I'm in
you're in
Berlin
UK, so I don't
actually.
know, you guys use Celsius, but like 10
Yeah,
o'clock in the
but
morning.
yeah,
Are you in Berlin? Okay, well, you guys all use a different system than a Celsius, and we use Fahrenheit, which I don't know why. But anyways, we get there. It's already at 10
Jesus.
o'clock. It's like
Yeah,
110
that's
degrees, so it's ridiculously hot. And there's nothing that lives there. It's just like it's just really open. That's why you have the truck down there. You race it. But he's like, "Hey, let's get Ash in the truck." I'm like, "Dude." So I get in the freaking truck, and we're going. Ken's like jumping stuff and he's going wide open throttle flat out, like just I've never been in a trophy truck. That's probably the most amazing experience I've ever had in any vehicle. Racetrack, and I've raced cars and racetracks and all that stuff, and that's cool. The trophy truck is like legitimately the most fucking awesome experience because you just fuck it, boom, just like all out, eats up everything. But again,
fuck.
that's a $500,000 vehicle, and and you need a crew to handle it, and you have to tow it everywhere. It's a very expensive toy, obviously. So, but that was another those two times where Ken drove me at speed, and it's some of my most memorable moments in my life, and it all came from just like literally it all came from wanting to make cars, making them digitally, and then like being persistent and then talking to Ken. And like anytime that Ken and I worked, I would go above
Yeah,
and
yeah.
beyond. I would under promise and over deliver every time. And every time we delivered, every time I worked with him, the quality would get better. And I would have a new skill or a new thing. And then if you look at like the Cosworth renders, and then you look at the Fox body renders, and then you look at the STI renders, and you look at the truck renders, there's a big difference in the value of like detail and some all that kind of stuff. So it was just a very visceral experience. And so
No,
in a
it's a great
nutshell, sorry that was a
response.
long response, but that was basically that was it was the craziest thing. And again, hopefully if you're listening to this, you get inspired. Like just go and do the thing that you love, and don't follow my path. Follow whatever it is to you. If you're like a big Ferrari person or F1 person, like, I don't care about either of those worlds. Like I appreciate them. I think they're incredible, but I'm not. That's not my thing. So pursue that thing or whatever it is. So there's definitely a way to
Well,
do it.
dude,
It's just a
you
matter
know,
of effort and time. Yeah.
talking like packing that up in a different way is and a lot of successful artists have talked about this is the work do the work that you want to be known for. Yeah, well, exactly. It's like
Doing.
but it's it's another way of talking
Yeah.
about a passion project, so to speak. If you if you're doing a job
Yes.
that you
Yeah.
don't like, but you've got to do it because it's paying the bills and you don't have any other better options at the moment. The best fucking way that you can spend your
Sure.
free time is by doing that passion project. And
Hmm.
don't let
Oh yeah.
the thought of like, okay, I need to chase this avenue because this is commercially very interesting at the moment. You have no, exactly,
Yeah. Don't do that. If it's
exactly,
interesting in that moment,
exactly,
you're already too late.
exactly.
Yeah. If the trend has occurred, you're too late. You need to create the trend or be perfect time, perfect place. And if
100.
not, don't even bother.
But you
Yeah.
should do
That's been
something
my
that
lesson.
you absolutely
Yeah.
love. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think a lot of us, we get caught in like what's happening and we go, oh, like we reflect and go, well, I'm not that. I don't have this. And it's part of our bad programming, which is like it's kind of indoctrinated in our media and our consumption of media, which is like the haves and have nots, like the Kardashian world and so on and so forth. Not necessarily their fault, but it's just the media machine. The media machine says, look at this thing. You don't have it. So buy this thing that makes you think you have it, but you don't. What you really need is to understand yourself and develop yourself through the process of like self-discovery and self-worth. If everybody, man, the world would be incredible if everybody took ownership for their actions and really cared about what they were doing. That's probably why I love Japan so much. I absolutely adore Japan. Japan's not a perfect place by any means, but it's incredible that it exists and the people are the level of quality and craft and dedication to things is just like I connect with that culture so much because of that. Because they really care about what they're doing and they have accountability towards their actions and so on and so forth. But yeah, I'm getting probably a little bit too much political and so on, all that kind of stuff. But that's really my take and my thought of all
Ash,
these things.
the last
But I
question I
agree.
want to
Yeah.
ask, and I might be, rather than leave it completely open, like what advice would you have for young kids? But I think if we were to be a bit more specific, like how would you
Hmm.
recommend pricing your first client?
Hmm.
Because
Um,
you've
okay.
talked about knowing
That
your
is
worth,
complicated.
and
Yeah.
that's a
Hmm.
complicated thing in
Yeah.
the beginning.
Uh, so in the beginning, the junior level, you do work for free if you're passionate about it. Do not do work for free if somebody's making a lot of money off of it. So understand that. Um, the reason why I would say do work for free, which is probably contrary, and a lot of people are probably screaming at me, don't say that, but like it's not devaluing you or the ecosystem because when you're starting out, you don't have a lot of value to offer. You just don't. You're not good enough. And we all started there and we all didn't have a lot of value to offer. So therefore, it doesn't make sense. So go to an internship, give your time freely to anybody that you love their work and want to give to. Like you see an amazing builder at a workshop that you love, go there, dedicate your weekends, give them everything you can because you need to learn. That's the beginning. If you want to make money, I would say learn and understand what your starting hourly rate would be. In the beginning, you need to do hourly probably, and then you would do project based. Project based is kind of where I'm at now, where it's like I price for the whole project and then I manage the time through that. That's where you make probably better ratio of you do hourly, then daily, then project based, if that makes sense. So I would probably say at the beginning, just give everything you can, do it because you need to learn and have value and work experience and then slowly incrementally grow that thing. You need to ask yourself and be very cognizant of what your value is and what you're giving to people that are employing you. If you don't have that, then there's no point in even having that conversation. So when I first started, I know I didn't have nearly the value, and if I tried to hire myself for that, I wouldn't even know. Like go garden, go water the trees. I don't know. Like you don't get out of my office. You don't even have a place in here. But I'm also very hard ass about this stuff because I've earned all these things. So I don't know, So I also want to sound like a dick, so which I probably just did. But we all have value. It's just in different levels. And it's like, okay, maybe it's like if I use it like a family analogy. If you sit down to a family meal and you didn't wash the dishes, you didn't peel the potatoes, you didn't cut anything, you don't know how to do any of those things, and all you know how to do is eat, then what value do you have at the situation? So you need to learn to go in there and participate and understand these things. So like when it comes to the family dinner, you go like, well, I marinated the steak and I did this and I barbecued that thing and I washed the dishes, and then therefore in the equation of the value of the meal, you have contributed. You know,
Well, it's some no,
I don't know,
no, but
weird
it's
analogy.
some
We didn't
no,
even talk about the Batmobile.
no.
I thought you would
We
want
can
to talk about
we can talk
Batmobile.
about the Batmobile.
That's
Let's talk
that's
about the
ironic.
Batmobile. You
You don't have to. I mean, yeah, we probably
no,
should
no, no.
wrap it in the
Well,
next 10
dude,
minutes
it's
because I have
your
to
no,
take a
it's your
piss like none
it's
other.
your dude. You the super fucking busy dude. I mean, it's late for me, but I don't have a job to do right now, and tomorrow's Saturday, so we can talk about the Batmobile. Okay,
15
cool.
minutes
Let's do
tops.
it.
15 minutes tops. Well, obviously, I thought that was funny because like I felt like those are like a bucket list thing, you know. So I was like, oh, this is cool, and I thought this would be a cool place to talk about it with. But I guess I think it's actually better and more fulfilling to everybody to hear about this other stuff, which I think is probably much more substantial and a tool to be used. Did that cover the last
Yes,
question though?
no,
Hopefully, like what I
what?
would say to give
Yeah,
value to somebody
absolutely. I mean,
starting new.
I think I guess you're probably not going to be having a client, so to speak, right off the bat, right? The best,
Unless
right?
you're sharp,
Could be.
yeah. Unless you're a fucking sous chef right out the kitchen, you know, like unless you like some guys do, some people do out of school, and they're just a cutter, like they rip. But there you go, you know. Then yeah, if you're going to school and all that kind of stuff, and you have an education, you've doubled down, and you invest in yourself, and you do have a skill, then yes, you need to be cautious of where you go with that investment of time, and you need to make sure your value is appreciated, but don't be humbled by starting out as a junior or a beginner and just learn through the process. Sorry, I didn't use that equation. I forgot that there are people get very expensive
Yeah, well,
educations.
especially if you go to art center,
Yeah.
fucking hell.
Uh,
I can't. Jesus.
yeah, which is great. You get to learn from like guys like Scott Robertson and stuff, you know, like and you get to learn from extreme talents and understand their processes and then analyze it, and there is something very substantial and important that's attached to that value system for that in that regard. So in that stage, I would honestly probably what I would do is I would ask other professionals that are in your niche where you want to go and have an honest conversation with them about pricing. That would probably give you a good evaluation. Most likely you're going to start in hourly. Second to that would be daily rates, and then you would go to project based. Project based happens when you're freelance running your own
Okay.
company, basically, and then you can charge per
So how
execution
many
of
people
final
are
product.
you like? How?
So
What does your company look like? Do you have a bunch of? Okay.
just
All
me and my
right.
wife.
Okay.
And then we expand and contract, and I just hire my friends if the project needs it and my friends are available. And I'll be like, oh, you know, like hire my buddy here and do this thing. And then sometimes we can expand to like 10 people. And sometimes, most of the time, it's just my wife and I. And the past like 10 years, I was going so fucking hard. And now I'm slowing back on that kind of stuff because at the end of the day, I don't own the Batmobile. At the end of the day, I don't
Yeah.
own what I do
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
Apple
Yeah.
or Nike and all these
Yes.
things. Like they own it, which is fine. But we're talking about
Yes.
NFT
Yeah.
era, you know, talking
Yeah.
about authenticity and
Yeah.
sovereignty and stuff. So I'd be a fool not to like
Yes.
capitalize on
Yeah.
my
Well,
time,
I
you
think
know.
that's
But
Seth Godin has a great speech on the difference between freelancing and entrepreneurship. And there's absolutely nothing wrong
hmm
with freelancing, but you need to understand the difference between those two things. And freelancing,
yeah,
it doesn't mean that one necessarily is going to be paying you more than the other. You know, you can have a freelancer that his time
sure.
is worth fucking, I don't know, $1 million a month or whatever it is. But
Mhm.
and you can have an entrepreneur that has a business that doesn't earn very much money. But the point is, you need to understand the difference
hmm
between those things. And with the freelancer, you need to
Yeah.
be present. You need to show up to do something. You need to exchange your time for numerical value. And entrepreneurship is
Yeah.
a different thing, where you're earning money, and
Yes.
you don't necessarily need to be in the room.
Yeah. Basically, your money
Right.
works for you, you know. Yeah. While you
Exactly.
sleep. Yeah, but it all takes
Yeah.
effort. Yeah. And that differentiation is really important to understand. And again, that's part of freelancing. That's a part of managing your artist career is knowing the side of business. You cannot turn your cheek to it. You have to approach it and understand it. I'm blessed that my wife understands it. She comes from finance, so she understands that side of things. So we counter each other really well. If we were both artists, I think we'd be screwed. But because she comes at it at a very logical, like business side of things, it helps us a lot. So I can really just focus on the art, and she can take care of the nuanced business side of things, which is a very important thing. You know, she writes all the smart contracts and stuff like that, and understands like the all of those kind of things a lot more than I do because I don't need to. That's for her. But if I had to, I would. And if you don't have that kind of resource, then you need to, obviously. So, but yeah. Okay. Last 10 minutes, we'll talk about the Batman. What questions? Do you have any questions, or you want me to talk about it?
Yeah, no, no, no. I don't have any specific que questions on the Batmobile. I mean, I guess I would ask.
It's
No,
not that.
I guess I would ask like how something like that. What is the brief for something like that, and then how does it what
Hmm,
does the process look like? Because in a design studio, for example, decisions on a vehicle, even a concept vehicle, there's a million people with their input, and everybody wants
yeah.
to have a fucking say in it. Is it the same?
Well, it's not that.
Is it the same on a film?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I can only
Talk
talk
about
about this
that
project with
project
these
in
people because every
relation to
film's
that
different, you know.
project.
Yeah. So the first interaction was with my production designer James Chinlin. James, a production designer, basically is kind of like the visual god of the world. Basically, they bring all the pieces together and the visuals of everything, kind of like the sets and how the world looks and so on and so forth. So James had reached out to Rupert. I think I mentioned this a little earlier, so I'll
Okay.
summarize it quickly. Rupert Rupert Sanders is the director of Ghost in a Shell, that film that I worked on. James asked, "Hey, do you know any talented car guys?" James apparently was looking for car designers, and he had hired and tried a bunch of different designers. And then Rupert's like, "Yeah, Ash is really into cars. You should hit him up." And I said, "Okay, cool." And I talked with James, and I just got a sense in the pulse of the film. I said, "Who's directing it?" He said, "Matt Reeves." I said, "Okay, that's a definite bonus and a check, because I really appreciate his films. I'm very persnickety about the films I like. I like a very specific film, and I take the film making and film watching very seriously." And so I talked to him about that. I asked him, what's the essence and the core of the film? What's the theme? And then we talked, and I was like, okay, great. And I was just about to head on a plane to go to Ken. That was when I went into the rally car. So that was really funny too, because we're in the van going out to the recce thing, and early in the morning I was like, guys, I'm gonna be designing the Batmobile, and they're like, oh wow, crazy. So that was pretty funny. So then when I got back home, I said, James, I'll come out to Warner Brothers. I'd like to meet you in person, then we could talk about it. And then I went out to Warner Brothers, met James in person. Super nice guys, very talented,
Was
very
this in
chill. And the
London
brief was,
or
no, the production hadn't gone to
okay,
London yet. It was out in LA, because I live in San Diego, so I just commuted
right.
out to LA, and in Warner Brothers Studios in LA. So I was there, and then yeah, he just showed me a couple references. I think we used like the Mustang from Bullet as an example, the kind of hard edge like look to it, and a couple very simple things. But what I loved about him is he didn't give me too much direction. He just let me kind of find it, and he was very open with it. So he said it's got to be visceral and brutish and he basically keywords, basically, not a whole lot of data and information, which I love. I love a kind of an open world. And then yeah, from there it was like I put together a couple like behind the scenes little like documentations online that I've released, a couple of them on Instagram if you're interested in knowing about the process of this. But first step is like I just give like very rough passes to him and Matt. And at the time, a director at that level has so much stuff that they don't really get inundated with things. And I don't know if maybe Matt even saw the beginning stages, because James probably protected him from that noise. Because a director at that level, there's so much noise coming in at every angle, casting and plots and scripts and budgets and so on and so forth. But I think on the third pass I did, there was a shot of the engine fully exposed, and it was like, oh, that's crazy. And then that was the first time that James said that Matt viscerally reacted to the thing. I remember really closely, like when I was at Warner Brothers with James, and before I left, I looked James in the eye and said, I'm here on this planet at this time. I'm going to design this car. I'm very excited about it, and this is it. This is what's happening. So it was like, again, it was like the fate was happening. I was like, I'm at the perfect time in the right place. I'm going to work my ass off until I can achieve this goal, and thankfully it worked out. So, and it was like, I think I got to like 6 passes. I sent off 6 things, and we kept iterating on it. And then there was another designer, a friend of mine, Ben Last. He was on there, and he helped design part of the front, like the bumper thing that goes in these big Rams. And I think there's another guy, I didn't meet him in person, Collie. And then there was a huge team of people that ended up taking my file and like translating it to real world.
Okay.
But yeah, and then that was the same for the bikes too. The bikes was the same thing. So But thankfully, it was just me and James. I never met or talked to Matt, so which is crazy.
Dude, that's
And I didn't even know anything about the movie outside of like just those like subtle notes. So I'm sitting in the theater. I'm with my wife. Every time I work on a film, I bring my wife. We watch it for the first time together. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, where's the Batmobile? This is crazy. This film's fucking awesome. And my favorite cinematographer, or one of my favorites, Greg Fraser, shot it. So I'm like, this is just visually spectacular. And then the freaking car comes on. And if you've watched the film, you know its entrance is incredible and it's very memorable. And I just start crying. I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. It was just one of those moments in my life where I'm just like, can't believe this is happening, you know, like how could this poor kid that came from this to do this thing, and it's like all evolving. It's just that was a very strong moment. I just was like, I didn't think I was like shaking. I was so
so that's
excited and
up
I was
there.
crying and
That's one of
like,
the standout moments for you.
oh yeah, there's my marriage day and there's the Batmobile reveal. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, it was like it was nothing else like it. I didn't realize how emotional it would make me and
So
how proud
career
I
wise,
was of it
that is
too.
it. Like that's probably.
Oh, that's it.
Oh
Yeah. What else
Jesus!
touches that?
Wow.
I'm a car guy and I love Batman. It's like, yeah, and
Fucking
like I've
hell.
been a Batman comic fan. Like all the books behind me, there's like whole parts of that bookshelf that have Batman focus. Like I'm a huge Batman fan, so I understand the character very well. And then, like, there's all I hid a lot of iconic things in there too that people wouldn't catch on first look, but I put the insignia in the front and the rear, and like it was all about theme. So like when I was tell James, I was like, I want a tube chassis frame, but I want it to be not a lot of bends. I want it to be harsh and angular and really like a cage, and I want it to be as a theme, which I know Matt understands and loves, is that this is Bruce Wayne. Like we're seeing Bruce Wayne like alter ego, right? So we have this weird, messed up guy that's doing these weird things, like trying to solve crimes and stuff, like a vigilante. It's a very weird thing to do, and he's punished, and so the car is him. Like it's this demon and this outer shell, and like I was like, they were talking about accidents and things ripping off of it, and I was like, let's have body panels ripping off, and we just see this like frame of like it should just look so nasty, you know, and it should look like what Bruce is inside. It should just look like a broken person and this nastiness inside. So, but yeah, hats off to them. And what a weird thing, you know. I've worked on a lot of movies. None of them have come close to hitting me like that because it was just so visceral, and to be able to be a part of that. And honestly, like, and I never, it was just a perfect place, perfect time, because Batman has a 10-year cycle where Batman is bad and cheesy, and then Batman's really good, and it's like,
Yeah.
and I just caught Batman when it was good. And in my opinion, Chris Nolan ones are amazing, but I feel like this is the one that I've been waiting for since like the Burton ones, but the Burton ones aren't as dark, and so I like this version the most. I think Matt has done the Batman franchise the most justice. It also pulls from all the references to comics that I really love, like Year One and so on and so forth. So, but yeah, I've not seen it in person too. A bunch of my friends have, and I really saying like, and COVID ruined me for all this stuff. I was supposed to go out to the studio, and I was really excited to go see it, and usually I do. But yeah, COVID just kind of totally kiboshed the whole thing, and yeah, production got annihilated and became a whole thing. So, but yeah,
Ash, you
it's
are
in my
like,
computer.
yeah, Ash, you are I mean, you are more than capable of drawing and painting and all that sort of stuff. With a project like that, are you sketching in the beginning, or are you just jumping straight into 3D?
For that one, I went mostly into 3D. I realized that was where the power was. Yeah, I just went right into it, and I just was doing like very low poly modeling, but rapid versions of it. If you get a chance, again, it's on my main Instagram account. I have 2 videos that I show the approach, and like everything does start from like a 2D. Like I sit in my sketchbook and I draw like very small thumbnails of side profiles, because for me, I'm sure you know this, well, I'm a self-taught guy, so I don't know the approach, but I always start with a side profile.
Yeah.
That's the signature of a car.
Yeah,
Everything comes from there,
absolutely.
because everything, the wheelbase and all these things, the ratio and the flow of things. And once I have that down, then I kind of go into the front and the top and the rear and move it around. And I felt like I had a lot more power doing it dimensionally, and I also felt like not a lot of designers could do it the way I was doing it, and I thought that might be appealing to Matt and James by like, oh, this guy is kind of weird. He does it in 3D before even sketching it, and oh, and one of the funniest comments that I had from when I was doing so I designed the Bat bike and then also the Drifter bike, and I was pushing the level of my realism as far as I could at the time. And one of the notes was like, Matt was like, "Can you make that one bolt over there like less rusty?" Like I think he was like, "What am I looking at? I can't tell. What is this real? Is it Photoshop? Is like I can't like." It was really funny. Yeah, that was kind of like one of those favorite notes that you get. You're like, oh, and then James was like, "Yeah, I think we're good." He's commenting on a nut, like a bolt, like we're good with the design. Now we can go execute. And I had a chance to talk pretty intimately with one of the guys that built the bikes, and he's a sweetheart and really talented. Because it's one thing to be the designer; it's another thing to execute it, and to execute it at the level that they did. Because they built 3 cars and they built multiple bikes, I believe, too, for props and stunts and stuff. But I mean, the team that they assembled on this thing is just, that's why I love Hollywood movies, is because where else would you have that happen? There's
Yeah.
such a level, it just doesn't happen anywhere else. I recently watched Top Gun. It was like the most hokey, cheesy Hollywood film I've ever seen, but I had so much fun watching it. And it's like only Hollywood would make a film like this. It's like Hallmark with jets. It's like, this is great. Like I totally loved it. And it was so silly and it was awesome. So
So Ash,
yeah,
when you like, for example, listen, I can't not mention this. I have to just mention it. So my buddy
sure.
Christian that I mentioned earlier on as well, he was hired by Warner Brothers on the same film, and he worked on the bike as well.
Hmm.
And I asked
No,
him at
yeah.
the time, Christian
Hmm.
Grajewski. I'll send you his profile later, but super super nice dude. And I asked him at the time, I was like, "Fuck, did you work with Ash?" And he said, "No, no, no, he didn't get to meet you because I didn't realize how it worked, because it seems like you
Yeah.
kind of have this vision, and it might be a, yeah, I don't know, like I mean, I don't want to say a kit bash, but you've got it.
Yeah. Oh, it was Kit
Okay,
Bash.
and you've got it.
Yeah. Well, it had to be because it had to be real. It couldn't be completely 100% conceived. That we didn't want that approach. We wanted to take something that existed and then remodelize it basically.
Right.
That was like kind of that was another part of the brief. So nothing was ever created. Well, I mean, yeah, there was parts, but it was mostly Bruce had to build it. So in my mind, I was like, okay, well, if I built this, I'm doing like a Ducati exposed lattice frame because I love the look of that. It also fits to the rhythm of the Batmobile because as you know, as a designer, you understand like there's a rhythm and there's a theme and there's a thing that connects all of these things. So yeah, and the engines and stuff, like yeah, there's all kinds of just random pieces that were smashed together just for concept's sake, and then they went off and because I think originally the Batmobile, I tried to convince them we'd do an NA like a 427 like big block
Fuck you know.
engine, twin turbo it, maybe twin turbo, but then I wanted to do an electric front because I own a Raptor truck and I own a Tesla Model Y, so I have both of those kind of polarizing worlds, but I love the way that they both kind of interact with. And ultimately, I'm hoping the next car I'm going to build is probably like a 1965 replica Cobra, but that's a whole another thing, part of my life that I'm looking forward to pursuing. But yeah, I had not met him. There's a lot of people involved. After my design was done in the files, I would just send off the files, and that was it. I was only on the project for a pretty short amount of time, 3 to 4 months, I think.
Wow. And
And
and are you
yeah,
like, what is your role is it, or do you come in just to do those two things?
that's it. That's all they needed me for that one. Yeah, but I mean, I could do all this. I can do all kinds of different stuff. I could build the sets and the locations and render stuff, and could design the bat suit if they wanted me to. I told him, but it's like I even was like, can I design the logo? Like I just basically asked everything because like, can I do these things? But credit to James, I think he realized that it was best to diversify
Okay.
the teams, and he's an awesome production designer for that case. Like Because if I did all these things, it would just be like too much, maybe not. I don't know. But yeah, but for that one, it was just that only.
Fuck, Ash,
Yeah.
dude, you've had a hell of a ride. But
Huge opportunity. Yeah.
dude, I mean, I've
Thanks.
quoted this before as well, but I'm paraphrasing. It's either Thomas Edison or Alexander Graham Bell, but success is not an accident. It's what happens when preparation meets opportunity, and
There it is. Yeah.
it's such a
That's
fucking
it.
great
That's my
thing.
life.
Yeah, well, dude, the
Yeah.
point is like, you said it's like being at the right place at the right time. You've got to put yourself forward, but like you
Yeah.
can put yourself forward and you can be, and that opportunity can happen. But if you haven't done the work to
Yeah.
fucking deliver something, then it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. You'll blow it. So,
You're just eating the food at the dinner table. You're not contributing. And what are you doing? Yeah. And you would
exactly.
have way better experience of enjoying the food if you cook it. Anybody that's cooked the food knows that.
Yeah,
The joy comes from cooking and preparing it and giving it to those you love and doing it together. Yeah.
that's some powerful shit, dude. That's some powerful shit.
Yeah, baby.
Ash,
Dude, thank you for your kindness and having me
no,
on
no,
here. It's
dude. I
amazing.
listen. It's an absolute honor. I mean, you're a monster. You've a legend in the concept art world, and so much so that we all know who you are. And I can't thank you enough for giving up your precious time to come and talk to us car designers.
Well, it's my honor and I appreciate that. And you're very kind and thank you for your generosity and kindness. And I don't know. I'm quite shy about that. So thank you. I don't know what to say other than thank you so much. And it's very kind of you. I appreciate the kind words. And I'm wishing you and everybody that's listening the best. And hopefully I've given you some sort of something
Oh,
that you can
yeah,
take and
absolutely. Yeah,
build on.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
That'd be the point.
yes, for sure. No, dude, you've given a ton, and so unique, and it's there's a lot to digest. And dude, we've been talking for almost fucking 3 hours, so that's a
That's crazy.
yeah.
I didn't even realize
No,
that
it's
now.
it's it's
Wow.
it's mad. Well, 2 hours and 40 minutes. That's a long one. So, and
Good flow.
it's gone great. So thank you so much, dude. And
Wonderful.
I'm gonna
Thank you.
listen to some of your pods as well. I listened to like bits and bobs of them, but I do know like
They're long.
yeah. I are they, how long do they go on for? Are they like Joe
I just did them
Rogan?
as long as I felt the
Okay,
conversation. If the
cool.
conversation's good, I don't stop it. Yeah, but yeah, like 2 to 3 hours, kind of like what we have here. But if you have time, you're just sitting there and you want to hear somebody talk about something you're interested in. It's like, well, sure.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I mean, dude, I would do
but
if
don't feel obligated.
no, no, no. But I mean, if
Yeah.
no, I like, I mean, you've got a couple with Mike there as well. I know of Vitali too as well. He's also, I mean,
Yeah.
he's a legend. And as you said, like, he's one of the great things about him specifically is, his methodical approach to mindset and being
Yes.
productive. And what did you say? Compartmentalizing the
Mm-hmm.
procrastination. No, what did you say?
Mm-hmm.
Personifying procrastination and
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
killing
And
it
annihilating
and
it. Yeah.
annihilating it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And getting to work.
Dude,
'Cause at the end of the day, that's what all that matters.
I'm
So yeah,
fucking,
man.
I'm reading Eat That Frog and War of Art
Yeah.
and Mastery as well. But I think I don't need, right now, I will get to Mastery. Right now, I don't need inspiration. I've got too much inspiration. I need like focus
Action.
and
Good.
action and killing the killing the procrastination. So I think I'm going to start with Eat That Frog.
Good. Yeah, that'll pursue you to get into the right destination for prioritizing your time. Yeah,
Cool.
amazing.
Uh,
I love it. Thank you.
no, thank you. So